The weak don't survive in wolf packs. That's what every alpha has told their pack since the beginning of time. But Helen Rivers would learn that survival isn't about strength. It's about sacrifice. And some sacrifices are so profound, they rewrite destiny itself. Helen had been called weak her entire life. Too small, too soft, too human in her wolf form, a pale shadow compared to her sister's magnificent silver coat. The Crescent Moon Pack had made their judgment clear. Helen was a mistake of bloodlines, a wolf barely worth the air she breathed. But on the night she heard a cub's terrified howl echoing through the thornwood forest, Helen didn't think about strength or survival. She thought about a child in pain. And that single moment of compassion would bring her face to face with the most powerful wolf in the realm, the Alpha King himself. Some say fate is written in the stars. Others say it's forged in blood. Helen would discover it's written in the scars we earn protecting those who cannot protect themselves. This is her story. Chapter 1. The Shed and the Silver Wolf. The scent of pine and morning dew filled the training grounds as Helen stumbled backward, her small frame hitting the dirt for the third time that hour. Above her, Brittany Hogan, her half-sister, stood with a victorious smirk, her silver fur gleaming in the dawn light as she shifted back to human form. "Pathetic," Brittany said, loud enough for the entire pack to hear. "How are we even related?" Helen pushed herself up on trembling arms, dirt streaking her plain brown hair. Her wolf whimpered inside her, a weak, fearful creature that had never been strong enough to earn respect. At 19, Helen should have been a formidable fighter. Instead, she was the pack's embarrassment. "Again!" commanded Georgina Noble, their stepmother and the pack's Luna. She stood at the edge of the training circle, her expression carved from ice. "Helen, if you can't defend yourself, you're useless to this pack, and useless wolves don't eat." Helen's stomach clenched. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Georgina had a way of punishing weakness with hunger, isolation, and public humiliation. It was a lesson Helen had learned repeatedly since her father, the former Beta, had died 5 years ago, leaving Helen at Georgina's mercy. "Mother, maybe she needs a break," suggested Gracie Gilbert, Brittany's best friend, though her tone dripped with false concern. "We don't want to break her completely. Who would clean the pack house?" Laughter rippled through the watching wolves. Helen's cheeks burned, but she forced herself to stand, to shift into her wolf form, a small, mousy brown creature with dull eyes and a thin coat. Next to Brittany's powerful silver wolf, Helen looked like a pup, not a grown she-wolf. Brittany circled her, teeth bared. "Let's make this interesting. If you can land one hit, just one, I'll convince Mother to let you eat tonight." Hope flickered in Helen's chest, dangerous and desperate. She lunged, trying to use her smaller size to dart beneath Brittany's guard. But Brittany was faster, stronger, better in every way. She caught Helen by the scruff and threw her across the circle like a rag doll. Helen's body slammed into a training post. Pain exploded through her ribs. She heard something crack. "Weak," Brittany said, shifting back to human form and dusting off her hands. "Just like your Omega mother. It's a wonder Father ever looked at her twice." Helen shifted back, clutching her side, fighting tears. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. "Enough," Georgina said, her voice bored. "Helen, you'll skip tonight's feast. Perhaps hunger will motivate you to grow a spine." She turned to the rest of the pack. "The rest of you, prepare for tonight. The Western Territories are sending an emissary. We need to show strength, not this." The pack dispersed, leaving Helen alone in the dirt. She waited until she was certain they were gone before letting the tears fall. Her ribs screamed with every breath, but she'd learned long ago that complaining only made things worse. The pack healer wouldn't waste supplies on her anyway. She limped toward the forest edge, toward the small, drafty shed where Georgina had forced her to sleep for the past 2 years. It wasn't fit for wolves, barely fit for storage, but Helen had made it her sanctuary. Here, at least, she was alone. Here, she could pretend she mattered. As she reached the shed's door, a familiar voice called out, "Helen, wait!" She turned to see Lindsay Holmes jogging toward her. Lindsay was one of the few pack members who'd ever shown Helen kindness, a quiet warrior with gentle eyes and a mate who'd died in a rogue attack 3 years ago. She pressed a cloth-wrapped bundle into Helen's hands. "From last night's dinner," Lindsay whispered. "Hide it, and take care of those ribs. I know Georgina won't let you see the healer, but there's wolfsbane salve in the training shed's back cabinet. It'll help with the pain." "Lindsay, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." Lindsay's eyes held a fierce sadness. "Your father saved my life once. I owed him. And you deserve better than this, Helen." "You're stronger than they see." Before Helen could respond, Lindsay was gone, disappearing back toward the pack house with the practiced invisibility of someone who'd learned not to draw attention. Helen clutched the food bundle to her chest and slipped into her shed. Inside, she unwrapped Lindsay's gift: bread, dried meat, and a small apple. Her stomach growled painfully, but she forced herself to eat slowly, savoring each bite. Who knew when she'd eat again? As the sun set and the sounds of the feast began, laughter, music, the rich scent of roasted meat, Helen sat alone in the darkness, holding her broken ribs and wondering, not for the first time, if running away would be better than this slow death by 1,000 cuts. But she had nowhere to go. A wolf without a pack was prey, and Helen was already the weakest wolf she knew. She closed her eyes and let exhaustion pull her under, unaware that tomorrow night everything would change. That tomorrow night she would make a choice that would bring her to the attention of the most powerful wolf in the realm. Tomorrow night, Helen Rivers would become something she'd never been before. Important. But first, she would nearly die. Chapter 2. The Cub's Cry. The next evening arrived with an unnatural stillness. Helen had spent the day in her usual routine, cleaning the packhouse floors, scrubbing dishes from the previous night's feast, and avoiding Brittany and her friends. Her ribs still ached, but the wolfsbane salve Lindsay had mentioned helped dull the worst of it. As twilight deepened into night, Helen finally finished her chores. Georgina had already retired to her chambers, and most of the pack had scattered to their evening activities, patrol shifts, training sessions, or simple recreation. Helen slipped away unnoticed, as always. She walked toward the forest edge, seeking the solitude only the trees could provide. The thornwood forest bordered the Crescent Moon Pack's territory, a vast ancient woodland that stretched for miles, eventually touching the lands of the great eastern kingdoms. Most pack members avoided the deeper parts of the forest, especially at night. Rogues sometimes wandered through, and rogues were unpredictable, dangerous. But Helen had walked these paths 100 times. The forest had never judged her, never called her weak. Here she could breathe. She was a mile from the pack house when she heard it, a sound that froze her blood and shattered the night's peace. A cub's howl, high-pitched, terrified, and unmistakably young. Helen's wolf surged to the surface, all instinct and protective fury. She didn't think, didn't calculate the danger. She just ran, crashing through underbrush and leaping over fallen logs, following the sound deeper into the forest than she'd ever gone before. The howling grew louder, more desperate. Then she heard the snarls, adult wolves, multiple voices rough and cruel. She burst into a small clearing, and the scene before her made her heart stop. A wolf cub, no more than 4 months old, with fur as black as midnight and eyes that glowed an impossible gold, cowered against a rock formation. 3 massive rogues circled it, their scarred bodies and wild eyes marking them as the worst kind of outcasts. Rogues who'd given up their humanity along with their packs. "Little royal bastard wandered too far from Daddy," one rogue growled, his voice barely intelligible through his wolf form. "Alphaking's gonna pay good gold for his son's body." Helen's mind reeled. Alphaking? This cub belonged to Roderick Merritt, the Alphaking who ruled the Eastern Territories with absolute authority, the most powerful wolf alive. The largest rogue lunged at the cub, jaws open. Helen didn't remember shifting, didn't remember making the decision. She just knew that a child was about to die, and she was the only one here to stop it. Her small brown wolf slammed into the rogue's side, throwing him off balance. It wasn't much, she was a fraction of his size, but it was enough to interrupt his attack. 3 pairs of red eyes turned toward her. "Well, well," the lead rogue said, his laugh like gravel grinding. "A little hero. How sweet." He sniffed the air. "Crescent moon pack. Weak blood. This'll be quick." Helen positioned herself between the cub and the rogues, her legs shaking but her stance firm. The cub whimpered behind her, and she felt his small body press against her hind legs, seeking protection. "Run," she wanted to tell him. "Run while they're focused on me." But the cub didn't run. He stayed pressed against her, and Helen realized with a sinking heart that he was too young, too terrified to understand. The three rogues attacked as one. Helen fought like she'd never fought before. She used her small size to dodge and weave, her teeth finding flesh when she could. But she was one wolf against three trained killers, and the outcome was inevitable. Claws raked down her side, teeth sank into her shoulder. Pain exploded through her body as the largest rogue caught her by the throat and lifted her off the ground, shaking her like a toy. Blood filled her mouth. Her vision blurred. She heard the cub crying, felt him trying to bite at the rogue's legs with his baby teeth. No, Helen thought desperately. He has to survive. He has to. With the last of her strength, she twisted in the rogue's grip and bit down on his eye. He howled and dropped her, stumbling backward. "Forget the cub!" he roared. "Kill this bitch first!" Helen barely registered hitting the ground, barely felt the second rogue's jaws close around her back leg, crushing bone. The world became a nightmare of pain and blood and the distant sound of the cub's crying. This was it. This was how she died. At least she'd die doing something that mattered. At least one life would be saved. The lead rogue loomed over her, teeth bared for the killing blow. Then the forest exploded. A roar split the night, a sound so powerful, so primal, that even the rogues froze. The temperature dropped. The air itself seemed to bow. A wolf burst into the clearing, and Helen's fading consciousness could barely comprehend what she was seeing. This wolf was massive, easily twice the size of the largest rogue, with fur as black as the cub's, but shot through with silver markings that seemed to glow in the moonlight. His eyes were molten gold, burning with an ancient fury. The Alphaking. He moved like death itself. The first rogue died before he could even turn around, his throat torn out in a single precise strike. The second tried to run and made it 3 steps before the Alphaking's jaws closed around his spine. The lead rogue, the one who'd hurt Helen, dropped to his belly in submission, whimpering. "Mercy, Alphaking, please." "You touched my son," Roderick Merritt said, his voice carrying even through his wolf form, a rare gift of the most powerful alphas. "And you hurt the she-wolf who protected him." The rogue's eyes widened. "She's nothing, just some—" He never finished. The Alphaking's strike was quick, final. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by Helen's labored breathing and the cub's soft whimpers. She felt the cub leave her side, heard his happy yip as he ran to his father. Roderick shifted to human form, a tall, powerfully built man with black hair and those same burning gold eyes. He knelt beside his son, checking him for injuries with gentle hands that had just killed 3 wolves. "Rex," he murmured. "You're safe now. You're safe." The cub, Rex, shifted too, revealing a small boy with his father's dark hair and golden eyes. "Papa, the lady saved me. The bad wolves were going to hurt me, but she fought them." Roderick looked up, his eyes finding Helen's broken form across the clearing. She was still in wolf form, unable to shift back, unable to move. Blood pooled beneath her. Her vision faded in and out. She tried to speak, to say it was nothing, that she'd only done what anyone would do. But no sound came out. Roderick stood and walked toward her, each step measured, purposeful. He knelt beside her, and Helen expected— what? Dismissal? Thanks before he left her to die? Instead, his hand touched her fur, gentle despite its strength. "You saved my son's life," he said quietly, "and you're dying because of it." Helen's wolf whimpered. She wanted to tell him it was worth it, that the cub, Rex, was worth any price. "What's your name?" Roderick asked. "Your pack?" She couldn't answer, couldn't shift, couldn't do anything but bleed and fade. Roderick's jaw tightened. He looked back at Rex. "Son, come here, quickly." The boy ran over, his face streaked with tears. "Is she going to die, Papa?" "Please don't let her die." "I won't," Roderick said, and something in his voice made it sound like a vow. An Alpha King's command to fate itself. He looked down at Helen, his golden eyes fierce. "You saved an Alpha King's heir. That debt can only be repaid one way." He bit his own wrist, drawing blood, and pressed it to Helen's muzzle. "Drink," he commanded. "That's an order." Helen's wolf instincts obeyed before her human mind could process what was happening. Alpha King blood, the most powerful healing magic in the wolf world. It was also a bond, a claim. Alpha King blood didn't heal without consequence. The moment his blood touched her tongue, power surged through her body. Her wounds began to close. Her bones began to knit. The pain receded like a tide, replaced by a warmth that spread from her core to her extremities. But something else happened too. Something that made Roderick's eyes widen in shock. A bond snapped into place, not just gratitude or obligation, a mate bond. Helen's eyes met Roderick's, and in that golden gaze, she saw her own shock reflected. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the Eastern Territories, the ruler of 5 kingdoms, had just discovered his fated mate, and she was a broken, weak wolf from a pack that considered her worthless. Roderick's hand remained on her fur, steady despite the bomb that had just detonated between them. "Your name," he repeated, his voice rough. "Tell me your name." Helen finally found the strength to shift back to human form. She lay in the dirt, naked and scarred and covered in rapidly healing wounds, looking up at the Alpha King with wide, terrified eyes. "Helen," she whispered. "Helen Rivers, Crescent Moon Pack." Roderick stared at her for a long moment. Then he removed his jacket and draped it over her body, covering her with surprising gentleness. "Helen Rivers," he repeated. "You saved my son. You nearly died protecting him from rogues when you owed him nothing." He paused, and his next words carried the weight of prophecy. "And now, by the moon's design, you are my fated mate." Helen's world tilted. This wasn't possible. Things like this didn't happen to wolves like her. "There must be a mistake," she breathed. "I'm nobody. I'm weak. "You're mine," Roderick interrupted, and the alpha command in his voice made her wolf purr despite her shock. "And I'm yours. That's not a mistake. That's fate." Rex tugged on his father's sleeve. "Papa, what does that mean? Is the lady going to be my new mama?" Roderick's expression softened as he looked at his son. "Yes, Rex, if she accepts." He looked back at Helen, and his voice gentled. "But first, she needs to heal completely, and we need to talk." He lifted Helen into his arms as if she weighed nothing, jacket and all. She was too shocked to protest, too overwhelmed to process what was happening. "My pack is camped 2 miles east," Roderick said. "My guards are searching for Rex. We'll meet them halfway." He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "And then, Helen Rivers, you're going to tell me everything about your pack and why a she-wolf brave enough to fight 3 rogues alone thinks she's weak." Helen opened her mouth to respond, but darkness claimed her before she could speak. The last thing she felt was the steady rhythm of the Alpha King's heartbeat and the small hand of a cub touching her arm. The last thing she heard was Rex's voice. "I like her, Papa. She smells like home." Chapter 3. The Alpha King's Camp. Helen woke to the sound of crackling fire and low voices. Her body felt strange, whole, strong, without pain for the first time in years. She opened her eyes slowly, adjusting to the warm glow of firelight dancing across canvas walls. She was in a tent, a luxurious tent, nothing like the drafty shed she called home. Thick furs covered her body, and beneath them, someone had dressed her in a soft cotton shirt that smelled like pine and winter storms, like the Alpha King. Memory crashed over her. The cub, the rogues, the mate bond. She sat up too quickly, and the tent spun. Strong hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. "Easy," Roderick's deep voice rumbled. "The healing was extensive. Your body needs time to adjust." Helen turned to find the Alpha King sitting beside her bedroll, his golden eyes studying her with an intensity that made her breath catch. In the firelight, he was even more imposing than she'd remembered, all sharp angles and controlled power, with an edge of something almost gentle in how he looked at her. "How long was I unconscious?" she asked, her voice hoarse. 3 hours. My healer checked you twice. All your injuries have closed, but you lost a significant amount of blood." He reached for a water skin and offered it to her. "Drink, slowly." Helen took it with shaking hands, acutely aware of how close he was, how the mate bond hummed between them like a living thing. She'd heard stories of mate bonds her whole life, the instant recognition, the pull, the sense of completion. She'd never imagined experiencing it, and certainly not with an Alpha King. "Rex?" she asked after drinking. "Asleep in the next tent with his nursemaid. He asked about you 17 times before exhaustion finally claimed him." A hint of warmth entered Roderick's expression. "He wants to give you his favorite stuffed bear as a thank you gift." Despite everything, Helen smiled. "He's sweet." "He's alive because of you." Roderick's voice turned serious. "Helen Rivers of the Crescent Moon Pack, you saved my son's life. That's a debt I can never fully repay. But before we discuss what happens next, I need to understand what I saw in that clearing." Helen's smile faded. "What do you mean?" "You're not weak," Roderick said flatly. "Your wolf is small, yes, but I watched you fight 3 rogues who outweighed you by 100 pounds each. You protected my son with your body. You bit out a rogue's eye even as he was killing you. That's not weakness. That's a warrior's heart." His eyes narrowed. "So why does a warrior think she's worthless?" Helen looked down at her hands, shame creeping up her neck. "Because I am weak. I'm the smallest wolf in my pack. I can't win training matches. I can't even defend myself against my own sister." "Your sister attacked you?" The temperature in the tent dropped several degrees. "It's just training," Helen said quickly. "It's normal." "It's not normal," Roderick interrupted, his voice hard. "Tell me about your pack, Helen. And don't minimize. I'm not asking as your mate. I'm asking as the Alpha King who has jurisdiction over every pack in the Eastern Territories." So Helen told him about her father's death, about Georgina's cruelty, about Brittany's bullying and the pack's contempt, about sleeping in a shed and going hungry and being called worthless so many times she'd started to believe it. With each detail, Roderick's expression grew darker. By the time she finished, his hands were clenched into fists, and his wolf prowled behind his eyes. "Your stepmother starves you," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Your half-sister breaks your ribs in training. Your pack forces you to sleep in a shed. And your Alpha allows this?" "Alpha Russell doesn't involve himself in pack discipline," Helen whispered. "Georgina handles internal affairs." "Russell Crosby," Roderick said, and Helen was startled he knew her Alpha's full name. "Yes, I know him, weak-willed, more interested in politics than protecting his pack." He stood abruptly, pacing the tent like a caged predator. "This ends tonight." "What? No. You can't—" "I'm the Alpha King," Roderick said, turning to face her. "I can do whatever I wish, and what I wish is to remove you from a pack that abuses you." Helen's heart hammered. "If you interfere, they'll know I told you. They'll think I'm trying to use you." "You are going to use me," Roderick said bluntly. "Helen, we're fated mates. The moon herself chose us. That means you're under my protection now, whether you accept the bond or not." He knelt beside her again, his expression softening slightly. "I understand this is overwhelming. We've known each other for hours, but the mate bond doesn't lie. And I don't abandon what's mine." "I'm not yours," Helen protested weakly, even as her wolf purred at the claim. Roderick smiled, a real smile that transformed his harsh features into something almost boyish. "Not yet. But you will be?" "Helen Rivers, I'm patient when it matters." His smile faded. "But I'm not patient with those who hurt what's mine." Your pack has committed crimes against you. Those crimes will be answered." "Please," Helen whispered. "I don't want to cause trouble. I just want—" She stopped, unsure what she wanted anymore. "You want to be safe," Roderick finished gently. "You want to be valued. You want to be more than the pack's punching bag." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I can give you all of that, but first, you need to decide something." "Decide what?" "Whether you're going back to the Crescent Moon Pack or coming home with me." Helen stared at him. "Home?" "My territory, the Eastern Royal Pack, where you'll be safe, respected, and free to discover who you really are without someone telling you you're weak every day." He paused. "I'm not forcing you. If you want to return to your pack, I'll take you back tomorrow. But I will be having words with Alpha Russell about his pack's treatment of you, and I will be checking on you regularly to ensure your safety." "And if I come with you?" "Then you'll live in the royal compound as my honored guest. You'll have your own quarters, access to everything you need, and time to heal, both physically and emotionally. Rex will probably attach himself to you like a barnacle, fair warning, and you'll have space to decide whether you want to accept our mate bond or reject it." Helen's breath caught. "Reject it?" "It's your right," Roderick said, though something flickered in his eyes. Pain, perhaps, or fear. "Not all fated mates choose to complete the bond. If you decide I'm not what you want, I'll respect that. You'll still be under my protection. You'll still be safe, but I won't force you to be my mate, Helen. That choice is yours alone." Tears pricked Helen's eyes. No one had ever given her a choice before. No one had ever asked what she wanted. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Roderick's expression turned fierce. "Because you saved my son, because you're my mate, and because every wolf deserves to be treated with dignity, especially wolves brave enough to face death protecting children." He stood and offered her his hand. "So what's your answer, Helen Rivers? Do you go back to the shed and the hunger and the cruelty, or do you take a chance on something different?" Helen looked at his outstretched hand, looked at the tent around her, warm and safe. Thought about Rex's sweet face and Lindsay's kind words and the mate bond humming between her and this powerful alpha who saw something in her no one else had ever seen. She thought about the shed, about Brittany's sneers and Georgina's cold eyes and the constant grinding weight of being unwanted. She took his hand. "I'll come with you," she said quietly. At least for a little while. To heal." Roderick's smile could have lit the night. "That's all I ask." He helped her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. "We leave at dawn. My guards will handle everything. You don't need to face your pack alone." "They'll be angry," Helen warned. "Georgina won't just let me go." "Georgina doesn't have a choice," Roderick said, and the alpha command in his voice made Helen's wolf sit up and take notice. "You're under the protection of the Alphaking now. If she objects, she'll answer to me personally, and trust me, Helen, no one wants that." A soft knock interrupted them. "Alphaking?" a female voice called. "The young prince is asking for the lady." Roderick glanced at Helen. "Feel strong enough to meet an enthusiastic 4-year-old? Despite her fears and the enormous changes happening so fast, Helen found herself smiling. "Yes." He led her to the neighboring tent, where Rex sat on a pile of cushions, clutching a battered stuffed bear. When he saw Helen, his face lit up like the sun. "Lady Helen!" He scrambled toward her, and Roderick caught him before he could tackle her. "Gently, Rex. She's still healing." "Sorry, Papa." Rex approached more carefully, holding out the bear. "This is Mr. Humphrey. He's very brave. He helps me when I'm scared. I thought maybe he could help you too?" Helen knelt down, ignoring the slight pull in her still healing muscles, and accepted the bear with the reverence it deserved. "He's wonderful, Rex." "Thank you." "You're really brave," Rex said seriously. "You're the bravest person I ever met, even braver than Papa, and he's the Alpha King." "I don't know about that," Helen said, glancing at Roderick with a small smile. "It's true," Rex insisted. Papa says you fought the bad wolves even though you were scared. That's what brave means. Doing the right thing even when you're scared. Helen's throat tightened. She looked at Roderick, who watched them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your papa is a very smart man, she said softly. I know, Rex agreed. And now you're going to come live with us. Papa told me. You're going to be my new mama, and we'll have so many adventures and— Rex, Roderick interrupted gently. Remember what we discussed. Helen is our honored guest first. She needs time. But she's your mate, Rex protested. You said the moon chose her for us. The moon chose her for me, Roderick corrected. But Helen has to choose us back. That takes time. Rex considered this, then looked at Helen with those earnest golden eyes. Will you choose us? Please? I promise I'll be good. And Papa's really nice once you get to know him. He's only scary to bad people. Helen's heart cracked open. I promise to think about it very carefully, she said. Is that okay? Rex nodded solemnly. Okay. But while you're thinking, you should know Papa makes the best pancakes, and he tells really good bedtime stories, and he gives the best hugs. Those are important things for mamas to know. Rex, Roderick said, but he was smiling. Bed, now. Yes, Papa. Rex threw his arms around Helen's neck in a quick hug, then scrambled back to his cushions. Good night, Lady Helen. Thank you for saving me. Good night, Rex, Helen whispered. Outside the tent, under a sky full of stars, Roderick walked Helen back to her tent. The camp around them was quiet, guards posted at careful intervals, the fire banked low. He's already attached to you, Roderick observed. Rex doesn't trust easily. His mother died when he was an infant. He doesn't remember her. I'm sorry, Helen said softly. So am I. She was a good woman. We weren't mates. It was a political alliance. But we cared for each other. When she died in childbirth, I swore I'd never take another mate unless the moon chose her for me. He looked at Helen. And then you appeared in that clearing, broken and bleeding, and still fighting, still protecting my son. And the bond snapped into place like it had been waiting for exactly that moment. Do you believe in fate? Helen asked. I do now, Roderick said simply. Get some rest, Helen. Tomorrow we travel to the Eastern Royal Pack. Your life changes tomorrow. It already changed, Helen murmured. The moment I heard Rex cry. Roderick's hand touched her cheek, gentle and warm. Then tomorrow it changes again. For the better this time. I promise you that. He left her at the tent entrance, and Helen ducked inside, clutching Rex's bear to her chest. She lay down on the furs, surrounded by warmth and safety she'd never known, and let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like to be chosen, to be wanted, to be someone's mate, to be the Alphaking's queen. Sleep claimed her with dreams of golden eyes and a cub's laughter and a future she'd never dared to hope for. But in the Crescent Moon Pack territory, miles away, Georgina Noble stood at her window, watching the forest where her stepdaughter had disappeared, and she was planning. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. Dawn broke cold and gray over the Thornwood forest. Helen woke to the sound of the camp stirring, guards breaking down tents, horses being saddled, the efficient movements of a royal entourage preparing to depart. She dressed in the clothes someone had left for her, simple traveling leathers that fit surprisingly well, and boots that were worn but sturdy. So different from the threadbare dresses Georgina had allowed her. When she emerged from the tent, Roderick was waiting, already dressed in dark riding clothes with his Alphaking insignia, a silver wolf beneath a crown, embroidered on his chest. You slept? He asked. Better than I have in years, Helen admitted. Good. He gestured to a smaller figure beside him, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair. This is Marcia Maynard, Rex's nursemaid and my most trusted advisor. She'll accompany you in the carriage with Rex. Marcia smiled warmly. It's an honor to meet you, my lady. The young prince hasn't stopped talking about you since he woke. I'm not a lady, Helen protested. Just Helen. You're the Alphaking's mate, Marcia said gently. That makes you a lady, whether you claim the title or not." Before Helen could respond, Rex came bounding over, his energy infectious despite the early hour. "Lady Helen, are you riding in the carriage with me? I can show you my favorite books, and Marcia packed cookies." Helen couldn't help but smile. "I'd love that." Roderick's expression softened as he watched them. "We have one stop to make before we leave this territory," he said, his tone shifting to something harder. "Your pack house. I'll be brief, but I need you to come with me. You don't have to speak. Just stand beside me. Can you do that?" Helen's stomach nodded. "You're really going to confront them?" "I'm going to make it clear that you're under my protection. That's not negotiable, Helen." His golden eyes held hers. "They need to understand that touching you now means answering to me. And they need to see you standing beside the Alpha King, so there's no question of your status." "They'll hate me even more," Helen whispered. "They already mistreated you. Their opinion no longer matters." He offered his hand. "Trust me?" Helen looked at his hand, steady, strong, offering protection she'd never had. Slowly she took it. "I'll try." The Crescent Moon pack house came into view an hour later, a sprawling wooden structure that had been Helen's prison for 5 years. Pack members were already gathering in the courtyard, drawn by the unmistakable presence of the Alpha King's entourage. Royal guards in silver and black, banners bearing the crown and wolf, and Roderick himself, radiating authority. Alpha Russell Crosby stood on the pack house steps, flanked by Georgina and Brittany. Russell was a heavy-set man with thinning hair and nervous eyes. Beside him, Georgina looked like carved ice, beautiful and cold, her silver blonde hair perfectly arranged. Brittany stood slightly behind her mother, confusion and wariness on her pretty face. Roderick dismounted in one fluid motion, then turned to help Helen down. His hand on her waist was possessive, deliberate. The message was clear to everyone watching. "Alpha King," Russell said, bowing deeply. "This is an unexpected honor. If we'd known you were traveling through our territory—" "I wasn't traveling through," Roderick interrupted, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "I was hunting rogues who attacked my son. Rogues who would have killed him if not for one of your pack members." Confused murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Russell's eyes widened. "Your son was attacked? Here?" "I assure you, Alpha King, we patrol our borders regularly." "Clearly not well enough." Roderick's tone could have cut glass. 3 rogues made it deep into your territory. They found my son during a tracking exercise. They would have murdered him." He pulled Helen forward gently. "This she-wolf saved him, fought 3 rogues alone, nearly died protecting my heir." Every eye turned to Helen. She felt their shock like a physical blow. Brittany's mouth fell open. Georgina's face went white. "Helen?" Russell said incredulously. "But she can't—" "She can," Roderick said flatly. "And she did." "Which raises some interesting questions, Alpha Russell, such as why a wolf brave enough to fight 3 rogues is treated like dirt in your pack." The silence was deafening. Georgina recovered first, her voice smooth as silk. "Alpha King, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Helen is a beloved member of our pack. If she's given you any other impression—" "She gave me no impression," Roderick cut her off. "I have eyes. I saw her injuries, old and new. I smelled the malnutrition. I heard her story from her own lips." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "She told me about the shed, the starvation, the abuse disguised as training." Russell's face went from confused to alarmed. Georgina's— "What is he talking about?" "Nothing, dear," Georgina said quickly. "The Alpha King has been misinformed. Helen is dramatic. You know how she exaggerates." "I don't exaggerate," Helen heard herself say. Every head swiveled toward her. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. "I sleep in a shed because Luna Georgina said I wasn't worthy of a room in the pack house. I go hungry because she withholds food as punishment. And Brittany broke my ribs 2 days ago during training." "That's a lie!" Brittany burst out. "I would never—" "Show them," Roderick said quietly to Helen. Helen's hands trembled as she pulled up the side of her shirt, revealing the fading bruises, yellow and green now thanks to Roderick's blood, but still visible. The shape of them clearly showed impact trauma, not training accidents. The pack gasped. Russell's face went red. "Georgina." "She's lying to impress the Alpha King," Georgina said, but her voice had lost its smoothness. "She saved his son, and now she's trying to use it for personal gain." "Enough!" Roderick's alpha command rolled over the courtyard like thunder. Every wolf dropped their eyes in submission. Even Russell bent his head. "I don't tolerate abuse in any pack under my jurisdiction. Helen Rivers is now under my personal protection. She'll be leaving with me today." "You can't just take pack members," Russell protested weakly. "I can when they've been abused, and I can when they're my fated mate." The courtyard exploded in shocked voices. Brittany made a strangled sound. Georgina's carefully controlled expression shattered. "Your mate?" Russell breathed. "But she's nobody. She's weak." "She's mine," Roderick finished. "Chosen by the moon herself. Question that again, and you'll answer to me personally." He looked at Georgina, and his eyes promised retribution. "As for you, Luna, Georgina, you have 48 hours to gather evidence that refutes Helen's claims. If you cannot, I'll return to discuss appropriate punishment for abusing a pack member under your care." Georgina's face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "She's lying. She's manipulating you. Helen saved my son's life while bleeding out from wounds your daughter gave her. She had every opportunity to tell me lies that would benefit her. Instead, she tried to defend your pack. She minimized her own suffering." Roderick's voice turned to ice. "But I see the truth, and the truth is that you're a bully who takes pleasure in hurting those weaker than you." "I demand a pack tribunal," Georgina said desperately. "As is my right. Denied. This is an Alpha King matter now." Roderick turned to Helen. "Do you have belongings you need to collect?" Helen thought of the shed, the few threadbare dresses, the broken comb that had been her mother's. "There's a comb. In the shed. My mother's." "Marcia," Roderick called, "take 2 guards and retrieve Helen's belongings from—" He looked at Russell with disgust. "From the shed where she was forced to sleep." Marcia hurried off with 2 guards. The pack watched in stunned silence. Helen felt their stares like brands, felt their judgment and shock and, in some cases, dawning shame. Lindsay Holmes stood near the back, tears streaming down her face, pride and sorrow mixed in her expression. Brittany stepped forward, her voice small. "Helen, I didn't know it was that bad. I thought we were just training." "You broke her ribs," Roderick said flatly. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Brittany flinched and fell silent. Marcia returned quickly, carrying a small bundle. "This is everything, Alpha King." Everything. Helen's entire life fit in a bundle smaller than a loaf of bread. Roderick's jaw tightened. He looked at Russell. "You failed your pack, and you failed this she-wolf. Consider this your only warning. If I hear of similar treatment toward any other pack member, I'll remove you from your position. Am I understood?" "Yes, Alpha King," Russell said miserably. Roderick turned to address the gathered pack. "Let this be known throughout the Eastern Territories. Helen Rivers is the Alpha King's fated mate. She is under my direct protection. Any wolf who harms her or speaks against her will face my judgment. Any wolf who doubts her worth can face me in combat." He paused, letting the weight of that sink in. "She is brave, she is strong, and she is mine." Helen felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from something she'd never experienced before. Pride. Someone was proud to claim her. Someone saw her value. Roderick took her hand and led her toward the carriage where Rex waited with Marcia. Behind them, Helen heard Georgina's furious whisper to Russell, heard Brittany's confused protests, heard the pack's shocked murmurs. She didn't look back. Rex bounced in his seat as Helen climbed into the carriage. "Did you see Papa?" "He was so fierce. Nobody's going to hurt you ever again, Lady Helen. Papa promised." "I heard," Helen said softly, settling beside him. Marcia smiled at her from across the carriage. Through the window, Helen watched Roderick mount his horse. He looked back at the carriage once, his eyes finding hers, and nodded. A promise. Then the entourage began to move, carrying Helen away from the only home she'd ever known, a home that had never wanted her, and towards something new, something terrifying and impossible and full of potential. Comment. What would you have said to Georgina if you were in Helen's position? As the crescent moon pack house disappeared behind trees, Helen felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been tight and painful for 5 years. Freedom. But in the pack house, Georgina watched the Alphaking's entourage depart with eyes full of cold calculation. "Mother," Brittany said nervously, "what do we do?" "We adapt," Georgina said softly. "Helen thinks she's won. She thinks the Alphaking will protect her. But fated mates can be broken, dear daughter. And weak little wolves? They have accidents all the time." Russell overheard and paled. "Georgina, you can't be serious. He's the Alphaking. If you touch his mate—" "Who said anything about touching her?" Georgina smiled, and it was a smile that promised blood. "I said accidents happen, and they do, even in royal compounds, even to the Alphaking's precious mate." She turned and walked into the pack house, already planning. Helen Rivers had escaped her shed, but Georgina Noble was patient, and revenge, served cold, was always sweetest. Chapter 5. The Eastern Royal Pack. The journey to the Eastern Royal Pack territory took 3 days. 3 days during which Helen discovered what it meant to be valued. Rex barely left her side, chattering about his favorite things: the garden where rare moonflowers grew, the library with books from every kingdom, the training grounds where his father taught warriors. Marcia treated her with gentle respect, answering questions about the royal compound and sharing stories about Roderick's fair but firm leadership. And Roderick himself rode alongside the carriage for hours each day, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking through the window about pack politics, history, or simply asking Helen about her interests. She learned he was 32, had been Alphaking for 8 years after his father's death, and carried the weight of 5 kingdoms on his shoulders with a quiet determination that reminded her of mountains, immovable, eternal. She also learned he was surprisingly gentle with Rex, patient when the boy asked endless questions, and that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. "You're staring," Roderick observed on the second evening as they camped under stars. Helen jerked her gaze away from where he'd been helping Rex roast marshmallows over the campfire. "Sorry, I'm just not used to seeing an Alphaking act like a normal father." "Because you thought Alphakings were monsters?" His tone was teasing. "Because I thought powerful wolves didn't have time for small things like marshmallows." Roderick smiled. "The small things are what make us worth following, Helen. Power without heart is tyranny." He paused. "Besides, Rex deserves a childhood. I won't let my responsibilities steal that from him." Helen's respect for him grew with every passing hour. On the 3rd day, they crested a hill, and Helen got her first view of the Eastern Royal Pack compound. It was breathtaking. The compound sprawled across a valley, protected by mountains on 3 sides and a wide river on the 4th. Buildings of white stone and dark wood rose in elegant architecture. The main pack house at the center was practically a castle, with towers and courtyards and gardens visible even from a distance. Surrounding it were smaller residences, training facilities, a marketplace, and beyond that, fields and forests that stretched to the horizon. 2,000 wolves live here, Roderick said, riding close to the carriage window. The heart of the Eastern Territories. Every wolf here has earned their place through loyalty, skill, or need of sanctuary. It's beautiful, Helen breathed. It's home, Roderick corrected. You're home now, if you'll have it. The gates opened at their approach, and wolves lined the streets to welcome their Alphaking home. Helen shrank back from the window, suddenly aware of how many eyes would be on her, judging her, questioning why someone like her deserved to be the Alphaking's mate. As if reading her thoughts, Roderick said quietly, "They're curious, not cruel. The royal pack knows better than to judge based on appearances. Many of them came here running from packs that did exactly that. Helen looked at him in surprise. Really? My father believed in giving second chances. So do I. He smiled slightly. You'll fit in better than you think. The carriage pulled up to the main pack house, and Roderick dismounted, immediately offering his hand to help Helen down. Rex bounded out after her, already calling to a group of children who'd gathered nearby. Rex, slowly, Marcia chided, but she was smiling. An older man approached, tall and lean, with silver hair and sharp green eyes. He bowed to Roderick. Alphaking, welcome home. Your messages preceded you. The guest quarters have been prepared as requested. Thank you, Edwin. Roderick gestured to Helen. Edwin Short, my head of household. Edwin, this is Helen Rivers. She's to be given every courtesy and comfort. Anything she needs, she receives. No questions. Edwin's eyes flickered with interest as he studied Helen, but his expression remained professionally neutral. Of course, Alphaking. Welcome to the Eastern Royal Pack, Miss Rivers. I hope you'll find your accommodations satisfactory. I'm sure they'll be more than satisfactory, Helen said softly, thinking of her shed. I'll show you to your rooms myself, Roderick said. Edwin, have dinner sent to my private dining room in an hour. For 3, Helen, Rex, and myself. As you wish, Alphaking. Roderick led Helen through the pack house, and she tried not to gape at the grandeur around her. Marble floors, tapestries depicting pack history, windows that let in streams of golden afternoon light. Wolves they passed bowed to Roderick and looked at Helen with open curiosity, but no one stared rudely or whispered cruel things. They climbed a grand staircase to the second floor, walking down a corridor lined with paintings. Roderick stopped at a door near the end of the hall. These will be your quarters, he said, opening the door. My rooms are at the opposite end of the hall. Rex's are between us. He insisted on being close to you. He smiled slightly. If you need anything, day or night, my door is always open. Helen stepped inside and froze. The suite was larger than the entire shed she'd lived in. A sitting room with comfortable furniture and a fireplace. A bedroom visible through an archway, with a bed piled with soft blankets and more pillows than she'd ever seen in one place. Another door revealed a private bathroom with a huge tub. This is too much, Helen whispered. It's standard guest quarters, Roderick said. Actually, these are a bit smaller than what I'd typically offer visiting alphas, but they're comfortable and private. He walked to a wardrobe and opened it, revealing an array of dresses, casual clothes, and riding leathers. Marcia had these prepared based on your measurements. If nothing fits or you need different styles, tell her. There's no budget limit. Helen touched one of the dresses, soft blue fabric that looked like it cost more than everything she'd ever owned combined. I don't know what to say. Say you'll rest before dinner. You've been traveling for 3 days. Roderick moved toward the door, then paused. Helen, I know this is overwhelming. Everything happened so fast. But you're safe here. No one will hurt you. No one will starve you or belittle you. And you can take all the time you need to decide what you want. What about what you want? Helen asked quietly. Roderick's expression softened. I want you to be happy. I want you to heal. And yes, eventually, I want you to choose me, but I won't rush you or pressure you. The mate bond is patient. He smiled, and so am I. After he left, Helen sank onto the couch and looked around her new reality. Part of her kept waiting for someone to tell her this was a mistake, that she didn't deserve any of this, that she should go back to her shed where she belonged. But another part, the part that had fought 3 rogues to save a child, that part whispered something different. Maybe you do deserve this. Maybe you always did. Dinner that evening was an intimate affair in Roderick's private dining room, a smaller space with a table that could seat 8, but felt cozy with just the 3 of them. Rex chattered throughout the meal, telling Helen about all the places he wanted to show her tomorrow. And the library. You have to see the library, Lady Helen. It has books about everything, even books about dragons, and Papa says dragons might have been real once. Might have been, Roderick emphasized. The historical records are unclear. But they could have been real, Rex insisted. And if they were real, that means magic is real and— A knock interrupted Rex's enthusiastic theorizing. Edwin entered, his expression apologetic. Alphaking, forgive the interruption. Alpha Trevor Carney from the Western Pack has arrived unexpectedly. He requests an immediate audience. Roderick's expression hardened slightly. Trevor is here? Did he say why? He claims it's urgent pack business that cannot wait. Roderick looked at Helen, frustration flickering across his face. I apologize. This shouldn't take long. Trevor tends toward drama. Edwin, please see that Helen has everything she needs. Of course, Alphaking. After Roderick left, Rex looked at Helen with serious eyes. Alpha Trevor is mean. He always wants Papa to do things that make Papa angry. Rex, Marcia said gently, that's not appropriate conversation. But it's true. Last time he visited, he said Papa should— Rex stopped, glancing at Marcia's warning look. Never mind. Helen filed that information away, curious but not wanting to push. She was still learning the dynamics of this new world. After dinner, Marcia helped Rex get ready for bed, and Helen returned to her quarters. She drew a bath, a luxury she'd rarely experienced, and soaked in hot water until her muscles finally relaxed. She'd just finished dressing in a nightgown from the wardrobe when a soft knock came at her door. Helen? It's me, Roderick's voice called. Are you decent? Yes, Helen called back, tying a robe over the nightgown. Roderick entered, looking tired and frustrated. I apologize for abandoning you on your first night here. Trevor was difficult. Is everything all right? Pack politics, Roderick said dismissively. Nothing for you to worry about. He studied her. You look more relaxed. I had a bath, Helen admitted. A real bath in a real tub. It's been years since— She stopped, embarrassed. Since you had basic comforts, Roderick finished gently. You don't have to hide what you went through, Helen. Not from me. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I meant what I said. You're safe here. No matter what happens, no matter what choices you make about our bond, you have a home in the Eastern Royal Pack. Why? Helen whispered. Why are you so kind to me? I saved Rex, yes, but you've already repaid that debt 100 times over. You could have taken me somewhere safe and left me there. You didn't have to bring me here. Didn't have to— You're my mate, Roderick interrupted. Did you think I'd just abandon you somewhere? Hand you off to another pack and walk away? He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back, and cupped her face gently. Helen, the mate bond isn't just about obligation. It's about recognition. My wolf knew you the moment I laid eyes on you in that clearing. Knew you were brave and strong and everything I'd ever looked for, and every moment since then has only confirmed what the moon already showed me. I'm not brave, Helen protested weakly. You fought 3 rogues alone. I was terrified. Which makes it braver, Roderick said. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Helen. It's acting despite it. You were terrified and broken and bleeding, and you still put yourself between my son and death. That's the definition of brave. Tears spilled down Helen's cheeks. She'd spent so long being told she was worthless that hearing the opposite felt almost painful. Roderick wiped her tears with his thumbs, his touch impossibly gentle for such powerful hands. I know it's hard to believe after years of cruelty, but I promise you, Helen, I'll spend however long it takes proving to you that you're worth everything. Worth protecting, worth choosing, worth loving. The word hung between them like a promise. You barely know me, Helen whispered. Then let me know you, Roderick said simply. Let me court you properly. Let me show you what it means to be cherished instead of tolerated. He smiled slightly. Let me take you on dates where I make awkward conversation, and Rex probably tags along asking if we're married yet. Despite everything, Helen laughed. He does seem very invested in this. He wants a mother who'll actually care about him. His biological mother died before he could know her. And every woman I've considered for political reasons has seen him as an obstacle, not a gift." Roderick's expression turned fierce. "You saw a child in danger and nearly died saving him. You looked at my son and saw someone worth protecting. That alone would have made me willing to give you anything. The fact that you're also my fated mate? That's just the moon confirming what I already felt the moment you put yourself between him and those rogues." Helen's heart thundered. "I don't know how to be an Alpha King's mate. I don't know pack politics or how to act at royal events or—" "You'll learn. I'll teach you. And honestly," Roderick smiled, "I don't need someone who knows politics. I have advisors for that. I need someone real. Someone who'll challenge me when I'm wrong, support me when I'm right, and love my son like he's their own. Everything else is just window dressing." "This is happening so fast," Helen breathed. "I know. And I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. I'm just asking you to stay, to give us a chance." He stepped back, giving her space. "Sleep well, Helen. Tomorrow, Rex will probably drag you all over the compound. Fair warning. He's been planning your tour for 2 days." At the door, he paused and looked back. "For what it's worth, I've never felt like this before. Not with Rex's mother, not with anyone. The mate bond is intense. But it's not just that. It's you. The way you fight despite being scared. The way you're kind even after experiencing cruelty. The way you looked at my son like he mattered more than your own life." His voice roughened. "You're extraordinary, Helen Rivers. And I count myself blessed that the moon chose you for me." He left before Helen could respond, closing the door softly behind him. Helen stood in the middle of her beautiful suite, heart racing, mind spinning. She moved to the window and looked out over the compound, lights twinkling in windows, wolves moving through courtyards, the distant mountains standing sentinel. Somewhere out there was the crescent moon pack, where Georgina was probably plotting and Brittany was probably confused, and Alpha Russell was probably trying to forget the whole incident. But here, in the Eastern Royal Pack, Helen had been given something she'd never had before. A chance. A chance to be more than the unwanted stepdaughter. A chance to discover who she really was without constant criticism. A chance at happiness with a male who saw her value. And maybe, just maybe, a chance at love. She touched her chest, feeling the mate bond humming beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. Roderick was right. It was intense, but it was also warm, safe, like coming home after years of being lost. Helen Rivers had spent 19 years being told she was nothing. Maybe it was time to find out if they'd been wrong all along. Chapter 6. Poison in Paradise. Helen woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close and the sound of excited voices outside her door. Before she could even sit up, the door burst open and Rex bounded in, followed by a slightly exasperated Marcia. "Rex, I told you to knock." "But she's awake. See?" Rex launched himself onto Helen's bed with the fearlessness of a child who'd never been taught to fear rejection. "Good morning, Lady Helen. Papa said I could show you the compound today if you want. Do you want? Please say yes." Helen couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. "Good morning, Rex. And yes, I'd love a tour." "Excellent." Rex bounced off the bed. "Wear the green dress. Papa says green makes your eyes look pretty." Marcia's eyebrows rose slightly, amusement dancing in her expression. "The Alpha King said that." "Did he?" Rex nodded vigorously. "Last night after dinner, he told Edwin that Helen has really pretty eyes and the green dress would—" He stopped, suddenly looking uncertain. "Was that a secret? Papa says I'm not supposed to tell secrets." "It's all right, young prince," Marcia said gently. "Now come, let's allow Lady Helen to dress in private. We'll wait in her sitting room." After they left, Helen moved to the wardrobe and found the green dress Rex had mentioned, a simple but elegant design in deep emerald that indeed brought out the green in her hazel eyes. She'd never owned anything so beautiful. She dressed carefully, braided her hair, and emerged to find Rex bouncing in his seat and Marcia reading a book. "You look beautiful," Rex announced. "Papa's going to think so too. He's meeting us for breakfast in the main dining hall." Helen's stomach fluttered nervously. The main dining hall? With the whole pack? It's tradition, Marcia explained. The Alpha King takes breakfast with his pack 3 times a week. It helps maintain connection with his wolves. But don't worry, you'll sit at the high table with Roderick and Rex. No one will bother you. The dining hall was indeed massive, able to seat hundreds of wolves at long tables that stretched the length of the room. When Helen entered with Rex and Marcia, conversation quieted as curious eyes turned toward them. But true to Marcia's words, no one stared rudely or whispered cruelly, just open curiosity about the she-wolf who'd arrived with their Alpha King. Roderick stood from the high table and smiled when he saw her. "Helen, you look lovely. Please, sit." He pulled out a chair beside his own, and Helen sat, very aware of how many wolves were watching this interaction. Rex climbed into the chair on her other side, chattering about all the places he wanted to show her. Throughout breakfast, which was a feast compared to what Helen was used to, wolves approached the high table to speak with Roderick about pack business. Helen noticed how he treated each one with respect, regardless of their rank. A young warrior nervous about her first solo patrol received encouragement. An elder concerned about his grandson's behavior received thoughtful advice. A mother worried about her daughter's upcoming mating ceremony received reassurance and offers of help. This was an Alpha King who knew his wolves, who cared about them beyond their utility. "You're doing it again," Roderick murmured beside her. "Doing what?" "Watching me like I'm a puzzle you're trying to solve." Helen felt heat creep up her neck. "Sorry. I've just never seen an alpha lead like this. Alpha Russell barely knows half his pack's names." "Then Russell is failing as an alpha," Roderick said simply. "Power without connection is just tyranny waiting to happen. My father taught me that." He smiled slightly. "Besides, these wolves chose to follow me. The least I can do is know who they are." After breakfast, Rex grabbed Helen's hand and dragged her toward the door. "Come on, I want to show you everything." The tour was exhausting, but wonderful. Rex showed her the training grounds where warriors practiced. Helen watched in awe as wolves sparred with a skill and precision her old pack had never achieved. He showed her the healers' building, where a kind-faced woman named Rosemary Love explained their fully stocked medical supplies and healing techniques. "We never turn away wolves who need healing," Rosemary said warmly. "Alpha King's orders. Health is a right, not a privilege." The library was Rex's favorite stop, a massive building filled with more books than Helen had ever seen. Rex immediately started pulling volumes off shelves, explaining what each one was about, with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been read to extensively. "Papa reads to me every night," Rex said proudly, "even when he's really busy. He says stories are important." Helen felt her heart squeeze. This powerful Alpha King made time every night to read bedtime stories to his son. They visited the gardens next, where moonflowers grew in impossible abundance, silver blooms that supposedly only thrived under direct moonlight, but somehow flourished here during the day. "The moon goddess blessed these grounds," an elderly gardener explained when he saw Helen's wonder. "When the first Alpha King built this compound, he prayed for the moon's favor. She answered by making the moonflowers grow year-round. It's a sign that this pack has her blessing." As they walked through rows of silver blooms, Helen noticed Roderick approaching with another man, tall and broad with sandy hair and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. This must be Alpha Trevor Carney, the Western pack leader Rex had called mean. "Helen," Roderick called, "I'd like you to meet Alpha Trevor of the Western Pack. Trevor, this is Helen Rivers, my fated mate." Trevor's eyes swept over Helen, assessing and dismissive in the same glance. "Charming to meet you, Miss Rivers. You'll forgive me if I'm surprised. Roderick's fated mate was not what I expected." The words were polite, but the tone carried an edge. Helen felt herself shrinking, old habits of making herself small resurfacing. But Roderick's hand settled on her lower back, warm and grounding. "Helen saved my son's life by fighting 3 rogues alone. She's brave, strong, and everything I could want in a mate. Your expectations are irrelevant, Trevor." Trevor's smile tightened. Of course, I meant no offense. I'm simply surprised. I'd heard rumors you were considering Luna Graciela Kirby from the Southern Pack. A strategic alliance between your territories would have been beneficial. I don't need strategic alliances. I need my mate, Roderick said flatly. Was there something you needed, Trevor? Or did you interrupt my morning to insult Helen? Actually, I came to request a private word about the rogue problem in the Western Territories. Trevor glanced at Helen. Pack business. Nothing your guest needs to concern herself with. Helen felt the dismissal like a slap. But before she could excuse herself, Roderick's voice turned cold. Helen is my fated mate, not my guest, and she'll be Luna of the Eastern Royal Pack once she accepts our bond. That makes pack business her concern. He looked at Trevor with barely concealed irritation. But I'll grant you 5 minutes. Rex, stay with Helen and Marcia. I'll return shortly. As Roderick walked away with Trevor, Rex slipped his hand into Helen's. Don't listen to Alpha Trevor. He's always mean. Papa says he's jealous because the Western Pack isn't as strong as ours. Rex, Marcia warned gently, pack politics. But it's true, Rex protested. Helen squeezed his hand gently. It's all right, Rex. I'm okay. But she wasn't okay. Trevor's words, and the way he'd looked at her like she was something beneath notice, had stirred up all the old feelings of inadequacy. She was just a weak wolf from a small pack. What right did she have to be the Alpha King's mate? Lady Helen? Rex's voice was worried. You look sad. I'm fine, Helen lied. Papa says lying is bad, Rex said seriously. Even little lies. He says we should always tell the truth, even when it's hard. Helen looked down at this earnest little boy and felt her heart crack. You're right. I'm not fine. Alpha Trevor made me feel small, like I don't belong here. But you do belong. The moon chose you for Papa. That means you're supposed to be here. Rex hugged her leg fiercely. And I think you're perfect. You're brave and nice, and you smell like honeysuckle, and you saved my life. Who cares what mean Alpha Trevor thinks? Despite herself, Helen smiled. You're very wise for 4 years old. Papa says wisdom isn't about age. It's about listening and learning. Rex brightened. Oh, I forgot to show you the best part. Come on. He dragged her toward a smaller building near the pack house. Inside was a studio filled with art supplies, paints, canvases, clay, drawing materials. Papa built this for the pack members who like making art, Rex explained. He says creativity is important for wolves. It helps us remember we're more than just fighters and hunters. He picked up some colored pencils. Do you like to draw, Lady Helen? Helen thought about the few times she'd managed to steal paper and a broken pencil from the Crescent Moon pack house, drawing in secret because Georgina said art was a waste of time for wolves. I used to, Helen admitted, but I haven't in years. Then draw something now. Rex pushed paper and pencils toward her. Draw whatever makes you happy. Helen sat down and picked up a pencil, feeling rusty and uncertain. But slowly, lines appeared on the paper. A forest. A small wolf protecting a cub. Stars overhead. She lost herself in the drawing, and for a few precious minutes, Trevor's dismissive words faded away. That's beautiful, Roderick's voice said from the doorway. Helen jumped, nearly dropping the pencil. She hadn't heard him return. It's nothing, just scratches. Roderick walked over and studied the drawing. It's the night we met. His voice softened. You captured it perfectly. The courage, the desperation, the hope. He looked at her with something like wonder. You have real talent, Helen. Georgina said art was useless for wolves, Helen said before she could stop herself. Georgina said a lot of things, Roderick replied, his voice hardening at the name. All of them wrong. He touched the drawing gently. May I keep this? It's just a sketch. It's the night my life changed, the night I found my mate. I'd like to keep it, if you'll allow me. Helen nodded, not trusting her voice. Roderick carefully rolled the drawing. I apologize for Trevor. He's difficult. He came to request help with his rogue problem, but spent most of our conversation trying to convince me you're not suitable as Luna. Helen's heart sank. Maybe he's right. I don't know anything about being a Luna. Neither did any Luna before they became one, Roderick interrupted. It's a role you learn, Helen, and you have qualities that can't be taught. Compassion, courage, genuine care for those weaker than you. Those are what make a great Luna, not political maneuvering or perfect etiquette. But what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough? Roderick cupped her face gently, making her meet his eyes. Helen, you fought 3 rogues alone. You survived 5 years of abuse without breaking. You're strong enough for anything. The only question is whether you believe it. Before Helen could respond, a guard burst into the studio, breathing hard. Alphaking, urgent news from the border. A messenger from the Crescent Moon Pack has arrived. Luna Georgina is demanding Helen's immediate return. The temperature in the room dropped. Roderick's expression turned deadly. Demanding? He repeated softly. She claims Helen was taken against her will, that as Helen's guardian, she has legal right to retrieve her. The guard looked uncomfortable. She's also threatening to file a formal complaint with the Council of Alphas. Helen felt ice flood her veins. The Council of Alphas, the governing body that oversaw disputes between packs. If Georgina filed a complaint, there would be a hearing, evidence, testimony, and Helen would have to face them all again. She can't do that, Rex said, his voice small and scared. Lady Helen chose to come with us. She's not going back there. Roderick's jaw was tight with barely controlled fury. No, she's not. Helen is under my protection. Georgina has no authority here. He looked at Helen, and his voice gentled. I won't let them take you back. I promise. But the council can file whatever complaints they want. I'm the Alpha King, and I say you stay. His golden eyes burned with determination. Trust me, Helen, I won't let her hurt you again. But as Helen looked at the fear on Rex's face and the fury on Roderick's, she realized something terrible. By coming here, by accepting Roderick's protection, she'd brought trouble to the one place that had shown her kindness. Georgina wasn't going to let her go peacefully, and now the Eastern Royal Pack, now Rex and Roderick, were caught in the crossfire. Helen had escaped her shed, but she'd dragged her chains with her, and Georgina Noble was very, very good at using chains to strangle hope. Chapter 7. The Challenge. The council chamber in the Eastern Royal Pack House was imposing. High ceilings, stone walls carved with the history of past Alpha Kings, and a massive table where Roderick now sat with his most trusted advisors. Helen stood near the back of the room, feeling small and out of place despite the beautiful green dress. Georgina's messenger, a wiry male named Jeff Berger, who'd always been one of her loyal followers, stood before the table, holding an official scroll bearing the Crescent Moon Pack seal. Luna Georgina Noble formally requests the return of Helen Rivers, ward of the Crescent Moon Pack, who was removed from Pack territory without proper authorization, Jeff recited in a bored tone. Furthermore, she wishes to inform the Alpha King that if Helen is not returned within 7 days, Luna Georgina will file a formal complaint with the Council of Alphas, citing Pack member abduction and illegal interference in internal Pack matters. Silence filled the chamber. Helen could feel the tension radiating off Roderick like heat from a forge. Ward? Roderick repeated, his voice dangerously soft. Helen is 19 years old. She's not a child requiring guardianship. Luna Georgina assumed legal guardianship after Helen's father died, Jeff said with a slight smirk. As Helen never formally challenged that guardianship or declared herself independent, she remains under Luna Georgina's authority until she either finds a mate or reaches 21 years of age. Helen's heart sank. She hadn't known about the guardianship extension, hadn't realized Georgina had that kind of legal hold over her. Edwin Short, who'd been reviewing the scroll, looked up with a grim expression. Technically, he's correct. Pack law allows guardianship of unmated wolves until age 21 if the guardian can prove the ward requires protection or guidance. Helen doesn't require Georgina's protection, Roderick growled. She requires protection from Georgina. That would need to be proven in a formal hearing, Edwin said carefully. And Luna Georgina is claiming the opposite, that Helen was manipulated by the Alpha King's gratitude and doesn't understand what she's agreeing to. That's ridiculous, Helen burst out. Everyone turned to look at her. She felt her face flush but forced herself to continue. I wasn't manipulated. I chose to leave. I chose to come here. Jeff's smirk widened. With respect, Miss Rivers, you were severely injured and potentially influenced by the Alpha King's blood bond when you made that choice. Luna Georgina questions whether you were in a sound state of mind. I was in a sound enough state of mind to save the Alpha King's son, Helen snapped, surprising herself with her own boldness. Roderick's expression flickered with pride, but his voice remained hard. Tell your Luna that Helen Rivers is my fated mate. That supersedes any guardianship claim. The mate bond grants Helen adult status regardless of age. The mate bond hasn't been completed, Jeff countered. Without a marking ceremony, Helen remains unmated in the eyes of pack law. Therefore, guardianship still applies. The room fell silent. Helen felt everyone's eyes on her, pitying, concerned, calculating. The incomplete mate bond was the weak point in Roderick's protection. As long as she remained unmarked, Georgina had a legal argument. There's another option, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Alpha Trevor Carney entering the council chamber, uninvited. Roderick's expression darkened. This is a private council meeting, Trevor. That affects all Eastern Territories if it goes to the Council of Alphas, Trevor said smoothly, which gives me the right to involve myself. He smiled that smile that didn't reach his eyes. Besides, I have a solution that benefits everyone. I doubt that, Roderick said flatly. Trevor ignored him and addressed the room. The issue is Helen's incomplete mate bond and her guardianship status. Both problems disappear if she formally rejects the mate bond and returns to her pack voluntarily. No, Roderick and Helen said simultaneously. Trevor raised his eyebrows. Hear me out. Helen returns to the Crescent Moon Pack, publicly declares the mate bond was a misunderstanding, and remains there until she's 21, just 2 more years. At that point, she's legally independent and can choose to return to Alpha Roderick if she wishes. Luna Georgina gets her ward back, the Council of Alphas doesn't get involved, and everyone avoids a scandal. Except Helen, Roderick snarled. Who goes back to sleeping in a shed and being starved and abused? Luna Georgina has assured me that Helen will be treated with full pack member privileges if she returns willingly, Trevor said. No more shed, no more restricted food. She'll even get her own room in the pack house. And you believe Georgina's promises? Roderick's voice dripped with contempt. I believe avoiding a council hearing is in everyone's best interest, Trevor replied. These hearings are messy. They open up packs to scrutiny. Sometimes they uncover things alphas would rather keep private. His gaze swept the room meaningfully. I'm sure the Eastern Royal Pack has nothing to hide, but the process itself is damaging to reputation, to stability, to future political alliances. Helen suddenly understood. Trevor wasn't trying to help. He was threatening. If this went to a hearing, he'd use it to damage Roderick's reputation somehow, find some weakness to exploit. Get out, Roderick said, his voice absolutely cold. You have no authority here, Trevor. And if you think you can threaten me into giving up my mate, you've forgotten who you're dealing with. I'm not threatening, Trevor said, though his smile suggested otherwise. I'm offering friendly advice. But if you insist on fighting this battle, be prepared for the consequences. The council will ask questions about Helen's injuries, about how quickly you claimed her, about whether an Alpha King should be taking mates from subordinate packs without proper courtship protocols. Courtship protocols? Roderick was on his feet now, power radiating from him in waves. She's my fated mate. There are no protocols for bonds the moon creates. The council may disagree, Trevor said calmly, but I'm sure you'll handle it well. You always do. He nodded to the room. I'll take my leave. Think about my suggestion, Alpha Roderick. For Helen's sake, if not your own. After Trevor left, the council chamber erupted in discussion. Advisors argued about legal precedents, political ramifications, potential council reactions. Helen felt dizzy trying to follow it all. Finally, Roderick raised his hand, and silence fell immediately. Enough. Here's what's going to happen. Helen stays. I don't care what legal gymnastics Georgina attempts. She's not getting Helen back. If she files with the council, we'll fight it. And we'll win. Alphaking, Edwin said carefully. The council hearing could take months. During that time, they might require Helen to return to her original pack pending resolution. It's standard procedure in guardianship disputes. Then we make it not a guardianship dispute, Roderick said. He turned to Helen, his golden eyes intense. There's one way to make this all go away instantly. One way to make Georgina's claims meaningless and Trevor's threats impotent. Helen's breath caught. She knew what he was going to say. Complete the mate bond, Roderick said quietly. Accept me. Let me mark you. Once the bond is complete, you're legally my mate. Guardianship ends. Georgina has no claim. The council has no jurisdiction. That's a huge decision, Helen whispered. I know. Roderick moved closer, his voice for her alone, even though everyone could hear. And I swore I wouldn't pressure you, that you could take all the time you needed. But Helen, if you don't complete the bond, the council might force you back to the Crescent Moon Pack while this gets sorted out. Back to Georgina. Back to the abuse. His jaw tightened. I can't protect you from council law. Not without a completed mate bond. Helen's mind raced. She'd known Roderick for 5 days. 5 days wasn't enough time to make a life-altering decision. But 5 days had shown her more kindness than 19 years in the Crescent Moon Pack. 5 days with Roderick and Rex had felt more like home than anything she'd ever known. And the alternative was going back. Back to the shed. Back to Georgina's cruelty. Back to being worthless. Helen, Roderick said gently, I'm not asking you to love me yet. I'm asking you to trust me. Trust that I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. Trust that you're safe with me. Trust that Rex and I want you, not because of politics or obligation, but because you're ours and we're yours. What if I'm not good enough? Helen whispered. What if I fail as Luna? What if you're everything I've been looking for? Roderick interrupted. What if you're exactly the Luna this pack needs? What if the moon knew what she was doing when she chose you? He took her hand, his touch warm and grounding. I believe in you, Helen Rivers. The question is, do you believe in yourself? Helen looked around the council chamber, at Edwin's kind eyes, at the advisors who watched with interest, but not cruelty, at the open door where she could see Rex peeking in, worry etched on his small face. She thought about the moonflower gardens, the art studio, the library full of books, the soft bed and warm baths and food she didn't have to earn through suffering. She thought about Roderick reading bedtime stories every night, despite being Alphaking, about how he treated every pack member with respect, about how he'd looked at her like she was precious when everyone else had looked at her like she was trash. She thought about the mate bond humming between them, warm, safe, right. And she thought about going back to the shed. Okay, Helen said quietly. Roderick's eyes widened. Okay? I accept, Helen said more firmly. I accept the mate bond. I accept you. I accept everything. She looked up at him, her voice strengthening with each word. You're right. I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of letting people like Georgina and Trevor make me feel worthless. The moon chose us. That has to mean something. Roderick's expression transformed, relief and joy, and something deeper that made Helen's breath catch. You're sure? Because once I mark you, there's no going back. You'll be mine forever. And you'll be mine, Helen said, surprised by her own boldness. That's how mate bonds work, right? It goes both ways? It does, Roderick confirmed, a smile playing at his lips. I'll be irrevocably, completely yours, for better or worse, until death parts us. Then I'm sure, Helen said. Rex chose that moment to burst into the room. Does this mean you're accepting Papa? Does this mean you're staying forever? Helen knelt down and pulled him into a hug. Yes, Rex, I'm staying forever. Rex's whoop of joy was so loud, several advisors winced, but he was already chattering excitedly. We need to plan the ceremony and tell everyone, and oh, can I help? Please say I can help. Roderick laughed, a real, genuine laugh that Helen had never heard before. It transformed his stern features into something younger, lighter. You can help, but first, we need to inform Georgina's messenger that his Luna's demands are denied. He turned to Jeff Berger, who'd been standing silent throughout the entire exchange. Jeff's smirk had disappeared, replaced by wariness. Return to the Crescent Moon Pack, Roderick said, his voice carrying alpha command. Tell Luna Georgina that Helen Rivers has accepted her role as my fated mate. The marking ceremony will take place in 3 days. After that, Helen will be Luna of the Eastern Royal Pack, and any attempt to interfere will be considered an act of war against my territory. Am I clear? Jeff swallowed hard. Yes, Alpha King. And Jeff? Roderick's eyes glowed gold with his wolf's presence. If Georgina attempts anything at all, to harm Helen before or after the ceremony, I will hold the Crescent Moon Pack accountable. That includes you. Choose your loyalty carefully. Jeff fled the council chamber like his tail was on fire. After he left, Edwin cleared his throat. Alpha King, a marking ceremony in 3 days is ambitious. There are preparations, invitations to other alphas, security concerns. Then we'd better get started, Roderick said firmly. This ceremony will happen in 3 days. Helen will be marked and officially recognized as my Luna, and anyone who objects can answer to me personally. The council chamber emptied as advisors hurried off to begin preparations. Soon, only Helen, Roderick, and Rex remained. I should probably be terrified, Helen said softly. 3 days until my entire life changes forever. Are you? Roderick asked. Terrified? Helen considered. She was nervous, anxious about the ceremony and what came after. But terrified? No. Because for the first time in her life, she was choosing her own path, not having it chosen for her, not being forced into something she didn't want. No, she said finally. I'm not terrified. I'm hopeful. Roderick smiled and pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead that sent warmth flooding through her. Good, because the next 3 days are going to be chaos, but at the end of them, you'll be mine, my mate, my Luna, my queen. And you'll be mine, Helen repeated, liking how the words felt. Always, Roderick promised. Rex hugged both their legs. This is the best day ever. Wait until I tell everyone. Lady Helen's going to be my mama. As Rex ran off to spread the news, Helen leaned into Roderick's embrace, letting herself believe, maybe for the first time, that she deserved this, deserved happiness, deserved love. Deserved to be more than the unwanted daughter in a shed. But in the Crescent Moon Pack territory, Jeff Berger delivered his message to Georgina Noble. And when he finished, Georgina smiled. 3 days, she murmured. How interesting. More than enough time. Time for what, Luna? Jeff asked nervously. Georgina's smile turned cold. To remind Helen Rivers exactly why weak wolves shouldn't reach above their station. To show the Alpha King what happens when he takes what doesn't belong to him, and to ensure that marking ceremony never happens. She turned to Brittany, who stood nearby looking uncertain. Gather our fastest scouts. I have a message to send to some very interested parties. And prepare yourself, daughter. We leave for the Eastern Royal Pack tomorrow. But Mother, the Alpha King warned us. The Alpha King, Georgina interrupted softly, is about to learn that taking my property has consequences. Helen thinks she's escaped. She thinks she's won. But she's forgotten one crucial truth. Her eyes glittered with malice. I never let go of what's mine. Not even if I have to destroy it to keep anyone else from having it. The storm was coming, and Helen Rivers, for all her newfound hope, had no idea how dark the clouds were gathering. Chapter 8, Eve of Transformation. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of activity that left Helen's head spinning. The Eastern Royal Pack transformed before her eyes. Banners bearing the royal crest appeared on every building. The Grand Hall was decorated with thousands of moonflowers, and wolves from across the territory arrived to witness their Alpha King claim his mate. Marcia appointed herself Helen's personal guide through the chaos, explaining traditions and protocols with endless patience. The marking ceremony has 3 parts, Marcia explained as she helped Helen try on potential ceremony dresses. First, the public declaration before the pack and visiting alphas. Second, the exchange of vows and the physical marking. Roderick will bite your neck, creating a permanent scar that shows you're mated. Third, the private completion of the bond. Helen's face heated at the implication of that last part. Marcia smiled kindly. Don't worry, dear. The Alpha King is a good male. He'll be gentle with you. And the bond completion is, well, it's powerful. It'll seal your connection permanently. I barely know him, Helen whispered, voicing the fear that had been growing as the ceremony approached. 3 days ago, I was nobody. Now I'm supposed to be Luna of the most powerful pack in the Eastern Territories? You saved his son, Marcia reminded her gently. You showed courage when it mattered most. That's what makes a Luna, Helen. Not perfect knowledge of politics or flawless etiquette. It's character, heart, the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She adjusted the silver dress Helen was trying on. This one. This is the one. Helen looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the wolf staring back. The dress was stunning, silver silk that caught the light like moonbeams, with delicate embroidery along the bodice and sleeves. She looked regal, beautiful, like someone who deserved to stand beside an Alpha King. I don't feel like a Luna, Helen admitted. None of us do at first, Marcia said, but you'll grow into the role, and you won't be alone. Roderick will guide you, and the pack will support you. We've been waiting for our Alpha King to find his mate for 8 years. You're an answer to prayers, Helen. Don't doubt that. A knock interrupted them. Rex peeked his head in, his eyes widening when he saw Helen. Wow, you look like a princess. No, a queen. Papa's going to fall over. Despite her nerves, Helen laughed. I hope not. That would make for an awkward ceremony. Can I come in? I have something for you. Rex bounded over, clutching a small wooden box. Papa said I could give this to you early. It's tradition. The Alpha King gives his future mate a gift before the ceremony. But Papa thought you should have it now because you've been nervous and he thought it might help. Helen opened the box and gasped. Inside was a delicate necklace, a silver wolf pendant with emerald eyes hanging from a fine chain. It was beautiful and clearly ancient. It was Papa's mother's, Rex explained, and her mother's before that. It's been passed down through the Alpha King's family for generations. Papa says every Luna has worn it, and now it's yours. Tears pricked Helen's eyes. This wasn't just jewelry. It was history, legacy, acceptance into a family she'd never thought she'd have. It's too much, Helen whispered. No, it's not, Rex insisted. You're going to be my mama. That makes you family, and family shares important things. He hugged her waist. I'm so happy you're staying, Lady Helen. I was scared you'd change your mind. Helen knelt down to his level. I'm not changing my mind, Rex, I promise. In 3 days, I'll officially be your mother. Is that okay with you? It's more than okay, it's perfect. Rex's enthusiasm was infectious. Oh, I almost forgot. Papa sent me to find you. He wants to see you in the garden. He said it's important. Helen found Roderick in the moonflower garden, standing among the silver blooms with his back to her. He wore simple black clothes, but even in casual dress, he radiated authority. When he heard her approach, he turned and his expression softened. You came, he said. Good. We need to talk. Helen's stomach nodded. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, important. Roderick gestured for her to sit on a nearby bench, and he sat beside her, close but not touching. Helen, in 2 days, you'll be my mate, my Luna, and I need to make sure you understand what that means. Marcia's been explaining the ceremony. Not the ceremony, what comes after. Roderick's golden eyes were serious. Being Luna isn't easy. You'll be responsible for the pack's internal affairs, settling disputes, overseeing education and childcare, managing household staff. You'll be expected to attend council meetings, diplomatic functions, ceremonies. You'll represent the Eastern Royal Pack to other territories. Helen's anxiety spiked. I don't know how to do any of that. I'll teach you. So will Marcia and Edwin and the other advisors. But Helen, I need you to understand, there will be wolves who doubt you, who whisper that you're not qualified, that I only chose you because of the mate bond, that you're too weak or too young or too inexperienced. His jaw tightened. They'll challenge you, test you, try to undermine you. You're trying to scare me, Helen said quietly. I'm trying to prepare you, Roderick corrected. Because when those wolves challenge you, I need you to stand firm. I need you to believe in yourself the way I believe in you. He took her hand, his grip warm and strong. You're stronger than you think, Helen, braver than you know, and you have something most Lunas never have, genuine compassion. You see wolves as individuals, not assets. That's rare. Precious. What if I fail? Helen whispered. What if I let you down? Let Rex down? Let the pack down? Then you get back up and try again, Roderick said simply. That's all any of us can do. But Helen, I don't believe you'll fail. You fought 3 rogues to save a child you didn't know. If you can do that, you can handle pack politics. Politics and fighting rogues are very different things. Not as different as you think. Both require courage. Both require putting others before yourself. Both require seeing what needs to be done and doing it despite fear. He smiled slightly. You already have a Luna's heart. The rest is just details. Helen looked down at their joined hands. Why do you have so much faith in me? We barely know each other. I know you saved my son. I know you survived 5 years of abuse without becoming cruel yourself. I know you draw beautiful art and treat Rex with genuine affection and don't cower when Trevor tries to intimidate you. Roderick lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. I know enough, Helen, and I'll spend the rest of our lives learning the rest. I'm terrified, Helen admitted. Not of you, of everything else, of being inadequate, of everyone realizing I don't belong here. Then be terrified, Roderick said gently. But be terrified as my mate, as Rex's mother, as the Luna of the Eastern Royal Pack. Fear doesn't make you weak, Helen. It makes you honest. And I'd rather have an honest Luna who admits her fears than a false one who pretends perfection. A commotion from the pack house interrupted them, raised voices, the sound of guards mobilizing. Roderick was on his feet instantly, his body tense. Edwin appeared at the garden entrance, his expression grim. Alphaking, we have visitors. Luna Georgina and her daughter have arrived at our gates, requesting an audience. They claim they're here to attend the marking ceremony as representatives of the Crescent Moon Pack. Roderick's expression turned thunderous. She has nerve showing her face here after threatening to file with the council. There's more, Edwin said reluctantly. Alpha Trevor is with them. He claims he offered to escort them as a gesture of goodwill between packs. Goodwill, Roderick repeated flatly. Trevor doesn't know the meaning of the word. He looked at Helen. You don't have to see them. I can send them away. No, Helen said, surprising herself. She stood, her legs shaking, but her voice steady. They came all this way. We should at least hear what they want. Helen, I'm not afraid of Georgina anymore, Helen said, and realized it was true. I'm not her ward. I'm not her victim. I'm your mate, your future Luna, and I won't hide from her. Roderick's expression filled with pride. Then we'll face them together. But the moment she crosses a line, I'm removing her from my territory, permanently. The reception hall was tense with anticipation when Helen and Roderick entered. Georgina stood near the center, dressed in an elegant gown that probably cost more than Helen's entire wardrobe. Brittany stood beside her mother, looking uncomfortable. Trevor leaned against a pillar, watching everything with calculating eyes. Georgina's gaze swept over Helen, and for a moment, Helen saw surprise flicker across her stepmother's face. Helen looked different now, well-fed, well-dressed, confident in a way she'd never been in the Crescent Moon Pack. "Alphaking Roderick," Georgina said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Thank you for receiving us. When I heard about your marking ceremony, I simply had to come pay my respects. After all, Helen is my stepdaughter. Her happiness has always been my priority." The lie was so blatant, Helen almost laughed. "Your priority," Roderick repeated, his voice cold. "Is that why she slept in a shed? Why she went hungry? Why her ribs were broken during training?" Georgina's smile never wavered. "I'm afraid Helen misrepresented the situation. She's always had a tendency toward drama." "I saw her injuries," Roderick interrupted. "I smelled the malnutrition. I heard her story from multiple sources. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise." "Of course," Georgina said smoothly. "Perhaps there were misunderstandings, communication issues. I've come to make amends." She turned to Helen, and her voice took on a honeyed tone. "Helen, dear, I'm so happy for you. Truly. And I want to apologize if you felt unwelcome in our pack. That was never my intention." Helen felt Roderick tense beside her, felt his wolf pushing to the surface, ready to defend her. But she placed a hand on his arm, staying him. "You're lying," Helen said clearly. Everyone in the hall froze. "You made my life miserable for 5 years. You starved me, isolated me, and let Brittany use me as a punching bag. You called me worthless so many times I started to believe it." Her voice strengthened. "But you were wrong. I'm not worthless. I'm the Alpha King's mate. I'm Rex's future mother, and I'm going to be Luna of the Eastern Royal Pack. And there's nothing you can do about it." Georgina's mask slipped, revealing the cold fury beneath. "Careful, Helen. Pride comes before a fall, and you've climbed very high very quickly. What happens when you inevitably stumble?" "She won't stumble," Roderick said, his voice carrying alpha command. "Because she has me. She has this pack. She has protection you never gave her, and support you actively denied her." He stepped forward, and wolves throughout the hall bowed their heads in automatic submission to his power. "You came here claiming to want to attend the ceremony. Fine, you may attend as witnesses only. You'll have no role in the proceedings. You'll sit in the back, and if you cause any disruption, any scene, any problem whatsoever, I'll have you removed from my territory and banned from ever returning. Am I clear?" "Crystal," Georgina said, though her eyes promised violence. "One more thing," Roderick added. "After the ceremony, Helen will be my marked mate. That means any attack on her, physical, verbal, political, or otherwise, will be considered an attack on me personally, on the Alpha King. The consequences for that are severe." His golden eyes bored into Georgina. "Test me on this, and you'll discover exactly how severe." Georgina bowed her head in a mockery of submission. "Of course, Alpha King. I would never dream of harming your mate." But as she raised her head, her eyes met Helen's, and the message was clear. This isn't over. After Georgina and Brittany were escorted to guest quarters, Trevor approached Roderick with that ever-present false smile. "That was quite the display, Roderick, very protective. But I have to ask, are you certain this is wise? Antagonizing Luna Georgina right before your ceremony? She has connections, friends in various packs. It would be unfortunate if complications arose. Is that a threat, Trevor?" Roderick's voice was silk over steel. "An observation," Trevor said lightly. "I'm merely suggesting that diplomacy might serve you better than confrontation, for Helen's sake, of course." "Helen is my concern, not yours," Roderick said flatly. "And if you're trying to intimidate me into— what? Sending her back? Calling off the ceremony? You've wasted your journey. Nothing and no one will prevent me from claiming my mate." Trevor's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see. 2 more days is a long time, Roderick. Anything could happen." After Trevor left, Helen turned to Roderick, fear creeping back into her chest. "He's planning something. They both are." "I know," Roderick said grimly, "which is why security will be tripled for the ceremony. Guards will watch Georgina and Trevor constantly, and you—" He cupped her face gently. "You won't be alone for a moment. I'm assigning Marcia and 2 guards to stay with you until the ceremony. No one gets near you without going through them first." "You think Georgina would actually try to hurt me?" "I think Georgina is desperate," Roderick said, "and desperate wolves are dangerous. But I won't let her touch you, Helen. I swear it." That night, as Helen lay in her bed with guards posted outside her door, she couldn't shake the feeling that Georgina's appearance was more than just a power play. It was a promise that the shed might be behind her, but the shadows from that life were still reaching for her. And in 2 days, when she stood before the pack to be marked, those shadows would make their move. She just didn't know how yet. Chapter 9, The Night Before. The day before the marking ceremony arrived with golden sunlight and a tension that hung over the Eastern Royal Pack like a storm waiting to break. Helen woke early, her stomach churning with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Tomorrow, she would become Luna. Tomorrow, Roderick would mark her. Tomorrow, her entire life would change irrevocably. But first, she had to survive today. Marcia arrived with breakfast and a schedule that made Helen's head spin. Final dress fitting at 9, blessing ceremony with the pack elders at 11, private meditation in the Moon Temple at 2, ceremonial bath at 4, early dinner with the Alphaking and young prince at 6. Then you'll retire early. You need rest before tomorrow. "What about Georgina?" Helen asked quietly. "Has she tried anything?" "She's been surprisingly well behaved," Marcia said, though her tone suggested she didn't trust it. "She and Brittany have stayed in their quarters mostly. Alpha Trevor has been meeting with some of the visiting alphas, but nothing alarming. Still, the Alpha King has guards watching them constantly." Helen wanted to feel relieved, but something about Georgina's quiet compliance felt wrong, like the calm before a hurricane. The morning passed in a blur of activities. The dress fitting confirmed that her ceremony gown was perfect. The silver silk gleamed like starlight, and when Helen put it on, even the seamstress teared up. "You look like the moon goddess herself," the elderly she-wolf whispered. "Our Alpha King chose well." The blessing ceremony with the pack elders was more intimidating. 5 ancient wolves, 3 males and 2 females, who'd served every Alpha King in living memory. They studied Helen with eyes that had seen generations of leaders rise and fall. "You're young," said the eldest, a male named Vince Shields, with a voice like gravel. "Untrained, from a pack that treated you poorly. Why should we trust you to lead ours?" Helen's first instinct was to shrink, to apologize, to agree that she wasn't worthy. But then she remembered Roderick's words. "Stand firm." "Because I understand suffering," Helen said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I know what it's like to be overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. That means I'll see the wolves others ignore. I'll hear the voices others silence. I won't be a perfect Luna, not at first, but I'll be a Luna who cares, who tries, who fights for those who can't fight for themselves." The elders exchanged glances. Then Vince smiled, a rare expression that transformed his stern face. "The moon chose well," he said simply. "You have our blessing, young Luna. May you lead with wisdom and compassion." The relief that flooded Helen nearly buckled her knees. The Moon Temple was a quiet sanctuary at the edge of the compound, a circular building open to the sky, with a pool of water at its center that reflected the heavens. Marcia left Helen alone there for private meditation, as was tradition. Helen knelt beside the pool and stared at her reflection. Tomorrow, she'd be marked, mated, Luna. The responsibility felt enormous. "You look troubled," a voice said from the entrance. Helen spun to find Brittany standing there, looking uncomfortable and uncertain. Her half-sister hadn't spoken to her since arriving at the compound. "What are you doing here?" Helen asked warily. "I wanted to talk. Alone." Brittany stepped inside, her hands twisting nervously. "I know you probably hate me. I would if I were you. The things I did, the training sessions." She stopped, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry, Helen. I'm so sorry." Helen stared at her, shocked. "You're apologizing?" "I know it doesn't fix anything. I know sorry isn't enough." Brittany's eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. "But I need you to know. I didn't realize how bad it was. Mother told me you were weak, that you needed to be toughened up, that the harsh training was for your own good. I believed her because it was easier than questioning her." "You broke my ribs," Helen said flatly. "I know." Brittany's voice cracked, "and I hate myself for it. I've hated myself since the Alpha King confronted us, since I saw how you looked at me, like I was a monster, because I was. I was a monster to you." "Why are you telling me this now?" Helen asked, suspicious despite the apparent sincerity. "Because tomorrow you'll be Luna. You'll have power over the Crescent Moon Pack, diplomatic authority, the ability to investigate pack treatment of members, all of it." Brittany met her eyes. "And I'm terrified that you'll use that power to destroy us, to punish us, and we'd deserve it, Helen. We'd deserve everything you could do to us." Helen stood slowly. "Is that what you think I want? Revenge? Isn't it what anyone would want?" Helen considered. A month ago, she might have wanted revenge. Might have dreamed of seeing Georgina and Brittany punished, but now, standing on the edge of a new life, revenge felt empty. "I don't want revenge," Helen said quietly. "I want to never be that powerless again. I want to make sure no other wolf in any pack suffers the way I did. I want to be better than the wolves who hurt me." She paused. "But Brittany, I can't just forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did left scars, physical and emotional. An apology doesn't erase that." "I know," Brittany whispered. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, and that I'm trying to be better. Mother doesn't know I'm here. She'd be furious if she found out I apologized to you." "Then why risk it?" "Because it was the right thing to do, even if it changes nothing." Brittany turned to leave, then paused. "Helen, for what it's worth, I think the Alpha King is right. You're stronger than any of us ever gave you credit for. You'll be a good Luna." After Brittany left, Helen sat in stunned silence. She hadn't expected an apology, didn't know what to do with it. But something small and hard in her chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness, but maybe the first step toward letting go of the anger. The ceremonial bath was conducted by Rosemary Love, the pack healer, who explained each ritual as she worked. "The bath symbolizes washing away your old life," Rosemary said as she added fragrant oils to the water. "Tomorrow, you'll emerge reborn as Luna, the Alpha King's mate, a new wolf with a new purpose." As Helen soaked in the warm water, Rosemary worked the oils into her skin and hair, humming ancient songs in a language Helen didn't recognize. "You're nervous about tomorrow," Rosemary observed. It wasn't a question. "Terrified," Helen admitted. "Good. Fear means you understand the weight of what you're accepting. Only fools approach leadership without fear." Rosemary smiled kindly. "But Helen, you saved a child you didn't know. You survived years of abuse without breaking. You faced your abusers with your head high. You're ready for this, even if you don't feel ready." "What if I fail?" "Then you'll have a pack full of wolves to help you back up. That's what pack means. We rise and fall together." Rosemary rinsed Helen's hair. "The Alpha King is a good male. Strong, fair, protective. He'll support you. And young Rex adores you already. You're not alone in this, Helen. Remember that when doubt creeps in." Dinner with Roderick and Rex was supposed to be relaxing, but Helen could barely eat. She pushed food around her plate while Rex chattered excitedly about tomorrow's ceremony. "And then Papa will bite your neck. Does it hurt? It looks like it hurts, and then there'll be a big feast and dancing, and everyone will celebrate, and you'll officially be my mama and—" "Rex, breathe," Roderick said with amusement. "Let Helen eat." "Sorry," Rex bounced in his chair. "I'm just so excited. I've been waiting my whole life for a mama." Helen's heart squeezed. "I'm excited too, Rex, and honored that you want me to be your mother." "Of course I want you. You're brave and nice, and you saved my life, and you smell good, and you're going to make Papa happy." Rex said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. After dinner, Roderick walked Helen back to her quarters. Guards followed at a discreet distance. They hadn't left Helen's side all day. "Tomorrow," Roderick said softly, "everything changes. Are you ready?" "No," Helen admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." Roderick smiled. "That's the definition of courage." He stopped outside her door, taking both her hands in his. "Helen, I want you to know, whatever happens tomorrow, whatever challenges come after, I'll be beside you. You'll never face anything alone again." "What if Georgina tries something during the ceremony?" "She won't get the chance. I've tripled security. There will be guards everywhere. And during the actual marking, you and I will be in the sacred circle. No one can enter without permission." His grip tightened reassuringly. "She can't hurt you anymore. I won't allow it." "You can't protect me from everything," Helen whispered. "Watch me," Roderick said, and the alpha command in his voice made her wolf purr with approval. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Sleep well, future Luna. Dream of moonflowers and new beginnings." After he left, Helen prepared for bed with Marcia's help, but sleep eluded her. She lay in the darkness, listening to the compound settle into night, and tried to calm her racing thoughts. Tomorrow she'd stand before hundreds of wolves and accept Roderick as her mate. Tomorrow she'd become Luna. Tomorrow her old life would truly end, and her new one would begin. She was drifting off when a sound made her eyes snap open. Scratching at her window. Helen sat up slowly, heart pounding. Her room was on the second floor. Nothing should be at her window. She crept toward it, and her blood turned to ice. A wolf stood on the narrow ledge outside, massive, scarred, with wild eyes that glowed red in the darkness. Not a pack wolf. A rogue. The same rogue from the forest. The one she'd bitten. The one whose eyes she'd taken. He smiled at her through the glass, revealing broken teeth. Then he held up something that made Helen's stomach drop. A doll, crudely made from straw and cloth, wearing a silver dress just like Helen's ceremony gown. As Helen watched in horror, the rogue twisted the doll's head. Slowly, deliberately. The message was clear. Then he dropped from the ledge and disappeared into the night. Helen ran to the door, throwing it open. "Guards! There was a rogue at my window!" The guards burst in, weapons drawn. One went to the window while the other checked the room. But when they looked outside, the ledge was empty. No trace of the rogue. No evidence he'd ever been there except Helen's terror. "I saw him," Helen insisted. "The rogue from the forest, the one who attacked Rex. He was there. He had a doll, my ceremony dress." "We believe you," the guard said gently. "We'll alert the Alphaking immediately. Increase patrols. Search the grounds." Within minutes, Roderick burst into her room, Rex sleepy-eyed and worried behind him. "Helen." Roderick pulled her into his arms, and she realized she was shaking. "Tell me exactly what you saw." Helen described the rogue, the doll, the twisted neck. With each detail, Roderick's expression grew darker. "He shouldn't be alive," Roderick said grimly. "I killed all 3 rogues that night. I watched them die." "Maybe there were more," Helen suggested. Maybe someone hired new rogues and told them to match the description," Roderick finished, his voice hard with fury. "Someone who wanted to terrorize you the night before our ceremony. Someone who wants you too afraid to go through with it." "Georgina," Helen whispered. "I can't prove it yet. But yes, Georgina." Roderick's arms tightened around her. "But she's made a critical mistake. She's shown her hand too early. Now I know she's planning something. and I can prepare." "What if it's not just about scaring me?" Helen asked. "What if she's planning something worse during the ceremony?" "Then she'll fail," Roderick said with absolute certainty, "because I'll be watching for it. And anyone who tries to harm you during our marking will face the full wrath of the Alpha King." Rex tugged on Helen's nightgown. "Can I sleep in here tonight? I don't want you to be scared alone." Helen looked at Roderick, who nodded. "I'll stay too. We'll all stay together tonight. Safety in numbers." So they arranged cushions and blankets on the floor of Helen's sitting room, Roderick and Rex on one side, Helen on the other, with guards posted at every entrance. It wasn't traditional for the future mates to spend the night before the ceremony together, but tradition could be bent when safety was at stake. As Helen finally drifted off to sleep, sandwiched between an Alpha King who'd promised to protect her and a little boy who'd claimed her as his mother, she tried to hold on to hope. Tomorrow would be beautiful. Tomorrow would be perfect. Tomorrow, she'd become Luna. And if Georgina tried anything, she'd discover that Helen Rivers was no longer the weak wolf who could be intimidated. She was the Alpha King's mate, and she wouldn't go down without a fight. But in the guest quarters across the compound, Georgina Noble sat at her window, watching the increased guard patrols with satisfaction. "The rogue performed perfectly," she said to Trevor Carney, who lounged in a chair nearby. "Helen's terrified. She saw exactly what I wanted her to see." "Are you certain this will work?" Trevor asked. "It'll work," Georgina said confidently. "Tomorrow, during the ceremony, Helen will be so focused on potential rogue attacks that she won't see the real threat coming. And by the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." "And if the Alpha King interferes?" Georgina's smile turned cruel. "He won't be able to. Not without breaking sacred ceremony laws. And Roderick Merritt is nothing if not honorable. That honor will be his weakness, and Helen's doom." She pulled out a small vial from her pocket, clear liquid that glowed faintly in the darkness. "Wolfsbane extract," she explained. "Enough to kill a normal wolf instantly, but I've modified it. This version won't kill. It'll do something much worse. It'll break the mate bond. Permanently." Trevor's eyes widened. That's forbidden magic. The kind that gets you executed." "Only if I'm caught," Georgina said. "And I won't be, because no one will suspect that the wine served during the ceremony toast has been tampered with. One sip, and Helen's bond with Roderick will shatter. She'll feel nothing for him. He'll feel the rejection like death, and in his devastation, he'll send her away. Back where she belongs." "What if she doesn't drink it?" "Oh, she'll drink it," Georgina assured him, "because refusing the ceremonial toast is an insult to the Alpha King, and Helen's too desperate to fit in, too eager to please. She'll drink, and then she'll lose everything." She held the vial up to the moonlight, watching the liquid swirl. "Tomorrow, Helen Rivers learns the most important lesson. You can't escape your past. It follows you, it finds you, and it destroys everything you try to build." Tomorrow, the marking ceremony would begin, but Georgina Noble would make sure it never finished. Chapter 10. The Marking Ceremony. Dawn broke over the eastern royal pack with a sky so clear it seemed the moon goddess herself had blessed the day. Helen woke to find Rex curled against her side and Roderick already awake, watching them both with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. "Good morning, future Luna," he said softly. "Ready to change your life?" "No," Helen admitted, "but let's do it anyway." The next hours passed in controlled chaos. Marcia whisked Helen away for final preparations, while Roderick went to ready himself and oversee security. Rex bounced between them, his excitement infectious, despite Helen's nerves. By noon, the compound was filled with wolves from across the Eastern Territories, alphas and lunas from neighboring packs, warriors, elders, families. Hundreds of witnesses gathered to see their Alpha King claim his mate. Helen could see them from her window as Marcia helped her into the silver ceremony dress. So many eyes that would judge her, so many wolves who would question whether she deserved this. "Stop," Marcia said gently, seeing Helen's expression. "You're spiraling. They're not here to judge. They're here to celebrate. The Alpha King finding his fated mate is cause for joy, not criticism. But what if Georgina... Guards are everywhere. We searched every guest, inspected every gift. Nothing gets near you without being checked. Marcia fastened the ancestral necklace around Helen's neck, the wolf pendant with emerald eyes settling perfectly against her collarbone. You're safe, Helen. Trust that. A knock at the door made them both tense. But it was only Lindsay Holmes from the Crescent Moon Pack, looking nervous but determined. Helen, may I speak with you? Just for a moment? Marcia looked ready to refuse, but Helen nodded. It's okay. Lindsay's been kind to me. Lindsay entered and pressed something into Helen's hand, a small drawstring pouch. Protective herbs, she whispered. An old tradition. Keep them with you during the ceremony. They're supposed to ward off ill intentions. Did Georgina send you? Helen asked warily. No. I came because I owe your father. And because... Lindsay's eyes filled with tears. Because you deserve happiness, Helen. After everything, you deserve this. Don't let anyone, especially Georgina, take it from you. After Lindsay left, Helen tucked the pouch into her dress, touched by the gesture. Maybe not everyone from her old pack had turned against her. The ceremony was set to begin at sunset, when the moon would rise full and bright. As golden afternoon light shifted to the purple of twilight, Marcia led Helen to the ceremony grounds, a massive clearing where a sacred circle had been drawn with blessed salt and moonflowers. Hundreds of wolves lined the clearing, creating a path to the circle. At the far end stood Roderick, dressed in traditional Alphaking ceremonial robes, black and silver, embroidered with his family crest. Beside him stood Rex, looking impossibly small and proud in his own formal clothes. When Helen appeared at the path's entrance, a hush fell over the crowd. Roderick's eyes found hers across the distance, and his expression stole her breath, wonder, pride, possession, and something deeper that made her heart race. This powerful Alpha King looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. Helen began the long walk down the path. With each step, she felt the weight of hundreds of eyes, but also the warmth of Roderick's gaze pulling her forward. She passed familiar faces, Edwin, Rosemarie, the pack elders who'd blessed her. She passed Georgina and Brittany, seated far to the side. Georgina's expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes promised violence. Helen lifted her chin and kept walking. Finally, she reached the sacred circle. Roderick extended his hand, and when Helen took it, sparks of recognition shot up her arm. The mate bond, recognizing that completion was near. You're beautiful, Roderick murmured, absolutely radiant. Before Helen could respond, Vince Shields, the eldest pack elder, stepped forward to officiate. His voice carried across the clearing, amplified by the power of the sacred ground. We gather under the moon's eye to witness the joining of two souls chosen by the goddess herself, Alpha King Roderick Merritt and Helen Rivers. Step forward into the sacred circle. They stepped inside together, and Helen felt the circle's power activate, a warm barrier that separated them from everyone else. Here, it was just the two of them and the moon above. Roderick Merritt, Alpha King of the Eastern Royal Pack, ruler of 5 territories, protector of the realm, do you accept this she-wolf as your fated mate? Will you protect her, cherish her, stand beside her for all your days until death claims you? I do, Roderick said, his voice steady and sure. I accept Helen Rivers as my fated mate. I swear to protect her with my life, cherish her with my heart, and stand beside her until my last breath. Vince turned to Helen. Helen Rivers, formerly of the Crescent Moon Pack, now claimed by the Alpha King. Do you accept this male as your fated mate? Will you stand beside him, support him, share his burdens and his joys for all your days until death claims you? Helen's voice shook, but she forced the words out clearly. I do. I accept Roderick Merritt as my fated mate. I swear to stand beside him, support him, and share in all that comes until my last breath. Then by the power vested in me by the moon goddess herself, I declare these two wolves bonded. Alpha King, claim your mate. Roderick pulled Helen close, his hand sliding into her hair, tilting her head to expose her neck. Helen's heart hammered as she felt his breath against her skin. "This will hurt," he whispered, "but only for a moment. Then you'll feel everything, our bond, complete and unbreakable. Are you ready?" "Yes," Helen breathed. Roderick's teeth sank into the junction of her neck and shoulder. Pain exploded through Helen, sharp and burning and overwhelming. But then it transformed into something else. Warmth flooded through her body, originating from the bite and spreading like wildfire through her veins. The mate bond, dormant until now, roared to life with such intensity that Helen gasped. She could feel Roderick, feel his emotions, his wolf, his very soul intertwining with hers, his fierce protectiveness, his deep affection, his absolute certainty that she was his and he was hers. When Roderick released her neck and licked the wound to seal it, Helen sagged against him. The mark would scar, a permanent sign that she belonged to the Alphaking. "It's done," Roderick said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're mine, Helen. Forever." The crowd erupted in celebration. Howls filled the night as hundreds of wolves acknowledged their new Luna. Rex bounded into the circle, throwing his arms around both of them. "Mama!" he cried. "You're really my mama now." Helen laughed through happy tears, hugging him close. "I really am." Vince stepped forward with a ceremonial chalice, wine blessed by the pack's spiritual leaders. The final ritual. The bonded pair drinks together, symbolizing their shared future. He offered the chalice first to Roderick, who took a sip, then to Helen. Helen reached for it, and that's when she saw it. Just a flicker of something wrong. The wine's color was slightly off, and in the crowd, Georgina watched with intense focus, leaning forward. The protective herbs Lindsay had given her seemed to warm against Helen's skin. Poison, or something worse. Helen took the chalice, raised it to her lips, and deliberately spilled it as she pretended to stumble. The wine splashed across the ground, soaking into the sacred circle's salt. Where it touched, the moonflowers wilted instantly. Died, turned black. The crowd gasped. Vince's eyes widened in horror. The wine was cursed, poisoned. Chaos erupted. Guards surged forward. Alphas jumped to their feet. And Roderick's roar shook the very ground. "Who dared?" His alpha command crashed over every wolf present, forcing submission. "Who brought poison into my ceremony? Into the sacred circle?" His eyes found Georgina, who'd gone pale. Beside her, Trevor was already trying to slip away, but guards caught him. "Search them," Roderick commanded. "Search everyone who had access to the ceremony preparations. Find who did this." But Helen had already seen the truth in Georgina's expression, the shock that her plan had failed, quickly replaced by calculation. Georgina hadn't expected Helen to refuse the chalice, hadn't expected her to be clever enough to notice. Guards found the vial in Georgina's quarters within minutes, the modified wolfsbane that would have shattered the mate bond. Roderick's fury was a living thing. "You tried to destroy our bond during a sacred ceremony on blessed ground." Each word fell like a death sentence. "That's not just attempted murder. It's blasphemy against the moon goddess herself." "I was protecting the natural order," Georgina shrieked, her composure finally cracking. "Helen is weak, unworthy. She doesn't deserve to be Luna. She should have stayed in her shed where she belonged." "She saved my son," Roderick said, his voice dropping to something more dangerous than shouting. "She survived your abuse for 5 years. She fought 3 rogues alone. She just outsmarted your assassination attempt." He stepped forward, and Georgina actually cowered. "She's stronger than you'll ever be, and now she's my mate, my Luna, and under my absolute protection." He turned to the pack elders. "As Alpha King, I invoke ancient law. Georgina Noble attempted to break a moon-blessed bond during sacred ceremony. The penalty is exile. She's stripped of her title, her pack, her home. She'll be cast out as a rogue, marked as Oathbreaker, and banned from every pack in the Eastern Territories." "No!" Georgina's scream was primal. You can't! I'm Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack. You have no authority. I'm the Alpha King. I have absolute authority. Roderick looked at Alpha Russell, who'd gone white with shock. Russell Crosby, you allowed this abuse under your watch. You failed to protect a pack member. Your pack is forfeit unless you can prove you'll lead better. Russell fell to his knees. Alpha King, I swear. I didn't know the extent of Georgina's cruelty. I'll make changes. You have 6 months, Roderick interrupted. 6 months to reform your pack. If I hear of similar abuse, I'll remove you and install a new Alpha. Am I clear? Crystal, Alpha King. Georgina was dragged away, still screaming threats and curses. Trevor tried to claim ignorance, but evidence linked him to the rogue who'd appeared at Helen's window. He'd hired the wolf to terrorize her. He too was exiled, his pack given to his more honorable younger brother. As order was restored and the ceremony resumed with fresh, properly blessed wine, Helen felt the reality sink in. She'd done it, survived, won. She was truly Luna now. The feast afterward was magnificent, tables laden with food, music filling the night, wolves celebrating with wild joy. Helen sat beside Roderick at the high table, Rex between them, and watched her new pack embrace her as their own. Lindsay approached during the festivities, tears in her eyes. The herbs, you used them. You noticed the poison. You saved me, Helen said gratefully. Thank you, for everything. Your father saved my life once. Consider us even. Lindsay smiled. I'm requesting transfer to the Eastern Royal Pack, if the Alpha King approves. I'd like to serve a Luna worthy of the title. Approved, Roderick said immediately. Helen will need wolves she trusts as she learns her duties. As the celebration continued into the night, Roderick leaned close to Helen. You were magnificent. The way you noticed the poison, the clever spill, you saved yourself, Helen. You saved us both. I had help, Helen said, thinking of Lindsay's warning, Marcia's preparations, the pack elder's blessing. I had a whole pack behind me. That's what being Luna means, Roderick said. You're never alone, and speaking of which, he stood and offered his hand. It's customary for the newly bonded pair to retire early, to complete the bond privately. Heat flooded Helen's cheeks as she understood his meaning. But she took his hand, let him lead her through cheering wolves and playful calls, back to the pack house where their newly prepared shared quarters waited. At the door, Rex hugged them both. Good night, Mama. Good night, Papa. I love you both. Love you too, little wolf, Helen said, her heart full. Inside their quarters, larger than Helen's old rooms, decorated with moonflowers and soft fabrics, Roderick closed the door and turned to face her. Last chance to back out, he said, though his tone was teasing. Once we complete this bond, you're stuck with me forever. I'm stuck with you already, Helen pointed out. The mark on my neck proves it. True. Roderick moved closer, his hands framing her face gently. But this is different. This is intimate. If you're not ready... Helen kissed him. It was clumsy and unpracticed, but it silenced his doubts. When she pulled back, she saw his eyes glowing gold with his wolf's approval. I'm ready, she said. I'm ready to be yours completely, and for you to be mine. Then come here, my Luna, Roderick murmured. Let me show you what it means to be cherished. What followed was tender and overwhelming, Roderick proving with every touch, every kiss, every whispered word that Helen was precious to him. The bond completion was powerful, sealing their souls together so completely that Helen could no longer tell where she ended and Roderick began. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with moonlight streaming through windows and the bond humming contentedly between them, Helen finally understood what home felt like. Not a place, not a pack, but this, being held by someone who valued her, protected her, loved her. What are you thinking? Roderick asked, trailing fingers through her hair. That I'm the luckiest wolf alive, Helen admitted. 3 weeks ago, I was sleeping in a shed. Tonight, I'm Luna of the Eastern Royal Pack, mated to the Alpha King and mother to the sweetest cub in existence. He is pretty great, Roderick agreed with a smile. But Helen, you need to understand something. I'm the lucky one. The moon gave me a mate who's brave and compassionate and clever enough to outsmart assassination attempts. A mate who loves my son like he's her own. A mate who sees past power and title to the male beneath. He kissed her forehead. You saved more than Rex's life that night in the forest. You saved mine too. You just didn't know it yet. Helen snuggled closer, letting contentment wash over her. So what happens now? Now that I'm officially Luna? Now you learn, you lead. You make mistakes and grow from them. You help me rule 5 territories with wisdom and compassion. Roderick's voice softened. And you let yourself be happy, Helen. Let yourself believe you deserve all of this, because you do. I'm working on it, Helen murmured, already drifting toward sleep. Work faster, Roderick teased. I don't have time to constantly reassure my Luna of her worth. I'll be too busy being completely devoted to her. Helen smiled against his chest. I can live with that. As sleep claimed them both, the moon shone bright through the windows, the goddess's blessing on a bond that had started in blood and desperation, but had transformed into something beautiful. Helen Rivers had been told her whole life that she was weak, worthless, meant for nothing but servitude and suffering, but she'd proven them all wrong. She'd saved a prince, won an Alpha King's heart, survived assassination, and claimed her place as Luna of the most powerful pack in the Eastern Territories. Not bad for a wolf who used to sleep in a shed. Epilogue. 6 months later. Helen stood on the balcony overlooking the Eastern Royal Pack compound, watching Rex play with other cubs in the training yard below. 6 months as Luna, and she still sometimes woke up expecting to find herself back in that shed, the whole thing a dream. But then Roderick would pull her close, or Rex would call her Mama, or a pack member would bow respectfully, and she'd remember, this was real. This was her life now. Luna Helen? Edwin appeared at her elbow. The representatives from the Crescent Moon Pack have arrived for their 6-month evaluation. Helen's stomach clenched, but she nodded. Show them to the council chamber. I'll meet them there. Alpha Russell looked older, more tired than Helen remembered. But beside him stood a new beta, a capable she-wolf named Deborah Roberts who'd implemented sweeping reforms in the pack. Luna Helen, Russell said, bowing deeply, thank you for receiving us. I've brought proof of the changes you and the Alpha King demanded. Treatment logs, new pack housing, restructured training protocols. And Brittany? Helen asked quietly. Requested transfer to a smaller pack out west, Russell said. She wanted to start fresh, away from her mother's influence. I approved it. Helen nodded. She and Brittany had exchanged a few letters. Awkward, but sincere attempts at rebuilding what had been destroyed. They'd never be close, but maybe someday they'd find peace. The reforms look good, Helen said after reviewing the documents, but I'll be sending observers quarterly to ensure they're maintained. The Crescent Moon Pack failed me. It won't fail anyone else, not on my watch. Of course, Luna. Thank you for your mercy. After they left, Roderick found Helen in their quarters, tension visible in her shoulders. How did it go? He asked, massaging the tight muscles. Better than expected. Russell seems genuinely changed, or at least genuinely scared of losing his pack. Helen leaned into his touch. Is it wrong that I still feel angry? That I can't just forgive and move on? No, Roderick said firmly. They hurt you for 5 years. Forgiveness isn't required, Helen. Moving forward is enough. You're ensuring they treat their wolves better. That's justice, not revenge. There's a difference. A knock at the door revealed Rex, holding a drawing. Mama, I made you something. The picture showed 3 wolves, one large and black, one medium and brown, one small and also black, standing together under a full moon. A family. It's us, Rex explained proudly. Our family. Papa says family is everything. Helen pulled him into a hug, tears pricking her eyes. It's perfect, Rex, just like you. And you're perfect too, Mama, Rex said seriously. Papa says so all the time. He says you're the best thing that ever happened to us. Rex, Roderick said, amused. I say that privately. But it's true, Rex protested. Why shouldn't everyone know? As Helen laughed and Roderick rolled his eyes fondly, and Rex begged to be allowed to stay up late for the council dinner, Helen felt the last piece of her broken heart click into place. She'd gone from unwanted daughter to cherished mate, from shed dweller to Luna, from worthless to worthy. And she'd learned the most important lesson of all. Strength wasn't about never being hurt. It was about surviving the hurt and building something beautiful from the ruins. Helen Rivers had survived, had thrived, had claimed her place in the world through courage and compassion and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. And she was only just beginning.